This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Kreiner.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lindsay.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Shaun Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. How's everybody doing today? 18 days until the Cornerstone Forum, and you have until the end of this week to get your tickets if you want the meals included, okay? The full access, get your meal, everybody's in person. I keep getting asked this question. I don't know how clear I can make this. Yes, Martin Armstrong is going to be on stage. I know that people came last year. He was, via video. This year, Martin Armstrong is leading off the Cornerstone Forum in person. Every speaker coming in person. Yes, they're going to be in attendance. They're going to be in the venue all day long. So if you're wondering about that, put your fears aside. They're going to be all there, all right? And we only have 18 days, and you only have 4 more days to get tickets with everything included, okay? When we're talking meals, lunch, supper, everything, okay? So if you haven't bought a ticket yet, don't wait any longer. End of this week, boom, the meals go away, and it's going to be a little different for the 2 weeks before. But we're 18 days away. Like, how did this get this close all of a sudden? It's like I was just on autopilot, and all of a sudden it's like right there. And you can still buy tickets by tables, that is, with 222 minutes, Kalen Ford, Ben Perrin. There's Jamie Sinclair, who got announced just recently, last week. So we got a ton going on. In the show notes as well for this one, Drew Weatherhead's book link. You should spend the 99 cents, help get that out. I've been reading it. It's pretty fantastic thus far. I've been enjoying his fiction writing, which is pretty cool. Honestly, you're going to hear all about it in this episode. Got a ton of time for Drew, as I think all of you know. We do our yearly chat. And a ton of time also for the next 2 companies, which is Bull Valley Credit Union and Silver Gold Bull, who are helping bring the Cornerstone Forum to Calgary, which is only 18 days away. I don't know why that shocked me today, but got through the weekend. Obviously, yesterday we replayed Thursday's live stream. And I pretty much turned the phone off for the weekend. Enjoyed some family time. I hope you did too. And now that it's Tuesday, it is guns ablazing as hard as we can go. 18 freaking days till the Cornerstone Forum, brought to you by Silver Gold Bull and BVCU. How cool is that? And talking Silver Gold Bull, if you want to get in on any of the things, we're talking precious metals, text or email Grahame down in the details for any feature details we got going on. Junk silver has been the main one we've been talking about. I don't know if you've been paying attention to gold prices, but holy Dinah, they just keep going up and up and up. Or if you got any questions around buying, selling, storing, or using your retirement accounts to invest in precious metals, hey, reach out to Grahame. Or if you're on silvergoldbull.ca.com, make sure to reference the podcast as, hey, I heard about you guys on there. Profit River. Another one you can reference the SNP on. That's any purchase in-store, online, over the phone. Make sure you reference SMP. You're going to get thrown in for a $100 gift card on any purchase. There's a draw each month, And if you're wanting to get direct to the contact, that's Joel. He is their internet and phone sales manager, and he knows his stuff. Down in the show notes, snp@profitriver.com. Just shoot him an email, and he can help you, guide you through any questions you might have. Of course, they are the major retailers of firearms, optics, and accessories serving all of Canada. Just go to profitriver.com. And a guy going to be there, one of the big gun lobbyists, CCFR, that's Rod Giltacki. He's going to be in attendance at the Cornerstone Forum, and he can break down all things gun-related as well. So if you're wanting one right now, profitriver.com. If you're wanting to hear some gun talk, not only is Jamie Sinclair and Chuck Prodnick going to be there, I'm sure they're going to lead you towards lead. You might want to go to the experts in selling it. That's Profit River. Rec Tech, they're going to be in attendance at the Cornerstone Forum as well. So you're going to get to meet Ryan, the manager there. They're going to have a booth set up, and Al, the owner, is going to be roaming around in and amongst all the people as well. So when it comes to, golf season, yeah, it's been warm enough. I think we could talk about it. You might want to go take a look at their golf carts. Man alive, they got some cool stuff in there. But if, maybe you're a little more into the mud, Go take a look at one of the Defenders, the side-by-sides, the quads. They got boats. They got Lund fishing boats. They got a ton over there. You can go online at rectechpowerproducts.com, or they're open Monday through Saturday on the west side of Lloydminster. Make sure to stop in and take a look. PlanetCom. Well, have you seen the new ShaunNewmanPodcast.com? You should go take a look. It is sharp. You want your guest suggestions put in? There's a spot to do that. Or you can just go take a look at what PlanetCom does for a website. It is sharp. Let me tell you, sharp. And when you're busy running and growing a business, yep, check. Trying to stay on top of the ever-changing world of information technology can be overwhelming, to say the least. I'm having problems keeping up with politics, let alone information technology. So that's why I turned to PlanetCom. They've been doing it for over 22 years, and they can help boost your productivity by proactively managing every aspect of your IT infrastructure. So check out planetcom.ca. That is the group over there. If you need an introduction, shoot me a text. I'd love nothing more to introduce you to Carl and his team. Substack is free to subscribe to. And yes, every Sunday, 5 p.m., we've been releasing the Week in Review. Or if you want some behind-the-scenes access, you can get the guest debrief. And I got to be honest, folks, the last little week has been full throttle. So we got a new debrief coming today for Drew Weatherhead, and there's going to be a whole bunch more coming as we progress through this week. This week's going to be a ton of fun. We got some interesting guests. And the mashup this week, I'm not there, which means Twos has a new guest host. I'm going to be tuning in because he won't tell me who he's got. So I'm curious who's going to be sitting down with Twos on the mashup, of course, every Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We got the new studio coming in 2025. Yes, it's coming along. If you're wanting to be a part of the Legacy Wall, we got a little value for value. We want your name or your business name on it. Skills, labors, materials, money. There's lots of different ways to get involved. Shoot me a text if you're interested in being a part of that. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a review. On X, make sure to hit retweet, all right? Love to get out past the walls that I'm sure are built around this platform on all of those platforms. And finally, I would say April 28th. If you haven't voted yet, of course, the polls are open. You can go vote. And April 28th, we got a 12-hour, yes, live stream coming. We're starting at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're going the full gambit, the full day. We're going to have guests from all across Canada, and hopefully you'll tune in, and we'll break a few records. Last week, we hit a new record with 13,600 people watching us live. Super cool, and we're looking to smash that out of the park on April 28th. We'll hope that you'll be there, and maybe you'll share with other people. If you own a bar or a restaurant, maybe you'll put it on the TV. I don't know. But April 28th, mark that on your calendar. All right, let's get on to that. Tale of the tape. He has his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is an author and about to release his new book series, Fractures. I'm talking about Drew Weatherhead. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Shaun Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Drew Weatherhead. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Shaun?
I'm having a pretty good day. I don't know. I've taken Drew on quite the Gallivant, the tour. Took him to the new studio because that was one of the promises I'd hoped to have by the end of April, is that we'd be doing this in the new studio. Instead, we're in the studio. And so you've probably got more than you bargained for this time around.
It's okay, though, because you gave me the option to, because I asked, I'm coming back mid-April. I'd love to do the show again. And you're like, I'm going to have this great new studio. I would love to have you out there as one of the first guests. I'm like, cool, let's do that. And then as the mid of April comes, you're like, Drew, I hate to tell you this, it's not going to be ready. So, we can hold this off until it's done, and then we can have you out. Or if you just want to come out, I'm like, I'm just coming out. I want to come out. There's a lot to talk about. I miss my buddy Shaun. Been away for 6 months, and Canada has gone even more crazy. So I got to talk about this stuff.
Well, and one of the things I think the audience knows by now, but maybe I'm sure I got some new people. But pretty much we have done this every summer now. Probably 3 straight.
Yeah, 3
maybe
years.
4. 2021.
Because I started my podcast in 2022.
Yeah, so the first one we did was when you were in your vehicle in the States.
Yep.
You'd been on the Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli.
That's right.
And then somebody passed along to me, so we had you on here. And then you came back from the States after all the mandates had lifted and all that jazz, and we had you in studio. And since then, every time we come back, we have you in studio. So it's like one of the markers of the year for me, if you would, right?
Changing of the seasons.
Drew's back in Alberta. Time to have a little conversation.
Yeah, the migratory Albertans are coming back.
That's right. Isn't that a sad thing? I don't know. It's a thing. Before we get going here, let's do this. You got a present for me, and I'm going to pay you for it. How's that?
I love it. All right. I know that I'm getting this silver coin. I look forward to it every time. I think this is my third one since you've been doing this. Second for sure. Let me see. Ooh. They're so pretty. Like, I know it's just a coin, but I love me fresh silver. Look at that. Gorgeous.
Yep.
And I'm keeping a different tradition alive because
every time
I have released, this will be my third book coming out, and you have got a first edition signed copy of each one. And this one is my first in a fictional series I'm starting. It'll be a 4-book series. And it is going to be a pre-release. So this one is, if it ever like blows up and I become the next J.R.R. Tolkien or something in the future, this will be worth a pretty penny because it's pre-editing. This is the original manuscript.
Yeah. So to people here, I'll put it up. So Drew's got a new book coming out, Fractures, right there. Man, I want to hear all about this. Fractures in Love.
Yeah, that's going to be the first one. Now, contrary to the sound, it's not a romance novel. This is a dystopian fantasy. Love will take on its own particular terminology as you go through the book. You're going to see there's some interesting twists to it.
Can I just say, like, heard your other stuff, and at times I'm just like, I'm so tired of the world at times. I can't handle more on the world, if that makes sense. I'm excited for, I assume this is why you went there, but I'm excited for something that's, fiction, but probably resembles a lot of the things that you've probably lived through, seen, experienced, maybe researched, et cetera, et cetera. I'm currently in a series, 1 Second After. I'm in the 3rd book of that, and it's not even escaping. It's because so much of it is like, it could happen, it has happened, or these are the things. There's a lot of different things that can be done with a fiction book that in a nonfiction, a little different. You know all about that. So I assume there's a reason for writing a fiction book.
Definitely. It's something, by the way, I never expected that I was going to do. I never expected to write any books, but they've come into me in this weird way through podcasting. And I've talked about this with you in the past too, how my first couple books came because of the podcast, because all these ideas start populating and then talking to each other in your head after a while. Hundreds of guests through, you'll start to have these, it's almost like a pressure that needs to be released somehow. Yeah. And the release for me was writing about it, because at least then I felt like I could have an moment where it's like, okay, I've done something with this. I feel like this has been, cataloged or packed away neatly in a way. I released a book in 2023, 2024, and then this one will be in 2025. And the first two are what you would call treatises, which are speaking at the reader. You're going to tell them about something. And this is like what you would expect from a philosophical foray or something to that effect. And they are sort of quasi-philosophical, although it's more of just like a layman's nuanced version of a lot of the thoughts that not only were presented to me in the first book, it was a lot of exploration, and then my own thoughts back on those thoughts in the second book, which is more of an explanation than an exploration. But both of those, you're speaking at the reader. And if they don't like being spoken at, or they don't like the ideas you're speaking to them or at them about, they're going to put it down. And, that is what it is, because that is just the nature of trying to project thought into the world. But I found an interesting phenomenon through a lot of the really well-known writers, thinkers, philosophers of the last 150 years in Western culture, is without fail, they always have a fictional aspect to their writings. Now, they have treatises. You can go through the list. You can go through, obviously, Nietzsche. You can go through Jung. You can go through, run down the list of well-known thinkers and philosophers over the last 150 years. But what you'll find is they also have fictional works. And I don't think that was an accident. I think they came across the same problem of I've got what I feel like are important ideas that I need to put out there for people to see, hear, enjoy, disagree with. I need it to be in a conversation of some sort, a discourse. But how am I going to get that to the broadest possible audience if at least 50% of them, maybe only 20% of them, want to read it at all? Nietzsche, for example, one of the most well-known philosophers in Western culture, not very beloved in the Christian circles because a lot of people attribute him with the death of God in the West. But one of his greatest writings, I think it was The Gay Science, or one of those ones around that time, near the 1880s, it was released. And he was at the peak of his fame at that point. He had already moved out, I think, to the Alps to do his writing. It only sold like 500 copies in his lifetime, which was not that impressive back then. In fact, he died in the year 1900, never knowing that his stuff was even going to be important. He probably thought he was a total failure. Meanwhile, though, you can go forwards to J.R.R. Tolkien, who's obviously very well known in the
Lord of the Rings.
Literary academic, but he was a language professor, I believe, in Oxford. He and C.S. Lewis were both in the same school system at the same time. And it's curious now, if you look at them, like great thinkers, whether it's philosophy or language or theology, their works are like Mere Christianity with C.S. Lewis is a staple for Christian reading. It's a staple for...
You know what they don't... just to interject for one quick second, because I'm in the middle of Mere Christianity. I'm reading way too many books all at the same time, but I weave and flow. I hit something I really like, and I sink my teeth into it. And others, I feel like I can kind of go in and out of it. Mere Christianity, what they should tell everyone, and I don't know why they don't tell everyone this, is that it was him talking on the radio during World War II. That's what Mere Christianity is his radio broadcast during World War II, and then they compiled them. I mean, there's a little more work to it than just that put into a book form. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Like, think about being in the war, getting bombed to high hell. And
he had been through a war at that point, too.
Yes,
he was in the First World War, and he barely survived. I actually wrote about this in my second book. I chronicle him because he's such an important thinker. He was brought onto the BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Corporation, which is the national radio station. And you got to remember, back in the 1940s, radio was everything. Like, few people even had a television, let alone anything to watch on it. So you got all of your news and all of your information during
the radio,
the largest war in human history, from the radio. And the BBC, one of the producers there, got a hold of one of Lewis's works. I believe it was called The Problem with Pain, or something to that effect. And it talked about why there's suffering in the world from a Christian point of view. And he said, we need to have this guy to have a regular talk show for, like, in a public scenario. This is, I wouldn't call it atheistic, but it's secular. It was not a Christian radio station he was going on. This is the national radio station. And what it turned out to be, like during the darkest parts of the Blitz, he was the voice of hope, where afterwards, after 1945 and the war was over, people looked at him as like a savior, essentially. Like, you got me through. Like, you hear people every now and again saying your show has really helped me. Imagine going through the Second World War.
But that's what I mean.
As the only podcast for your nation.
So you just right there sold probably 100 copies of that book, right? Because that right there, as soon as I started hearing, I'm like, why don't people just say that? Say, oh, amazing book that you got to read by him, Mere Christianity. You're like, oh, yeah, sure. Because I'm sorry, Mere Christianity. I'm probably going to learn more about this and be like, oh, actually, it's a great name. But I'm like, overall, I'm like, oh, sure. Right? Like, sure.
It's a very British name. It undersells it.
Right? And then you just listen, everything you just rattled off, and everyone listening should be like, yeah, that sounds like really fascinating. And listening to it, because I'm listening to it because I found that out. So instead of buying it, I bought the Audible so I could listen to it. I'm like, this is freaking insane. I'm trying to put my brain in Britain during World War II, right? Where you're getting everything you just laid out. I'm like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
And then, so if you were to say the name C.S. Lewis to regular Joe Blow on the street right now, are they going to think Mere Christianity? Are they going to think BBC in 1945?
Oh.
No, they're going to think Narnia.
They're going to think Narnia.
Why? Because it's accessible. because you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to survive the Second World War. All of this is timeless, and this speaks to the value and the potency of fiction. I actually got a quote. Actually, I'm going to pull it up here so I don't misquote it. I know I love bringing quotes onto your show, so I prepared this one. This is from C.S. Lewis. Actually, I follow a page on Instagram. I really suggest you should check it out. It's called The Culturist. They do daily carousels of really interesting Western culture. And this one was on Narnia and C.S. Lewis. And they said, deep myths do more than deliver one-dimensional moralizing lessons. They give you experiences. And this is C.S. Lewis speaking now. He says, they give us experiences that we've never had. And thus, instead of commenting on life, they add to it. So it takes you outside of the mundane, outside of the diatribes of left versus right or whatever your political system is bickering over at the time. And it puts you in a world that's impossible in a human way. And you get to experience, you don't have to say, well, is this character pro-Trump? Because that's going to determine whether I read it or not, because it's not a part of the question. That you're being put in as a observer to something that never happened, but feels eerily similar to a lot of the things that you've experienced in life. And this is why and how I wrote the book. It's based off of many Jungian principles like archetypes as well as the conscious and unconscious. And if you know those archetypes or those precepts, you'll see them all over the book. They're pretty out in the open for people who know what they're looking at. But even if you don't, and I was talking to Matt Enns about this, he was one of the guys who read my early version of it. And he knows all that stuff inside and out. He was the one that got me into Jung back in the day. And he's like, you use a lot of Jungian stuff in here. And I was like, well, it's kind of just the low-hanging fruit, to be honest, because what it speaks to is what Jung would call the collective unconscious. And what the collective unconscious, as far as he is concerned, is the things that are true for humans across generations, across cultures. It doesn't matter if you speak Chinese in the 10th century or if you speak English in the 20th century. Those things are true. And those are like the median, the zeitgeist of humankind is what he would label as the collective unconscious. All of these experiences are true across the mean. And that's where I drew from, was the things that are true across the mean. So you could be a Democrat, you could be a Republican, you could be a liberal, you could be a conservative, you could be someone from Tibet that doesn't know any of this stuff. And yet if you can get into the story, you can be absorbing value out of it.
Yeah, well, I've been really into The Godfather.
Okay.
So I watch, I don't know. If you're into movies, you're not into movies. If you're into movies, Godfather, you hit a certain age and you watch it because it's on this list of the greatest films ever, told, ever put together. But I almost guarantee it, you're going to be too young and you're not going to get it. And slow, and that's exactly what you're going to complain. It was really slow. The ending was really good, but it took forever to get there. And now I watch it as I don't know. Are we middle-aged now? I guess we're middle-aged.
I guess. Hey, I still feel like I'm a teenager.
I know.
That's never changed.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It won't change until your mind starts to go. I think I think you'll be 80 and still think you're 20. Honestly, It's just the body around you and one of the things that I not fear, but it'll suck the day your mind doesn't work the way it is right now because it is sharp. But either way, middle age.
I've never met somebody in their 60s, 70s, or 80s who feels like they are that. In fact, this is one of my favorite questions to ask people that are older than me. I asked my mother-in-law this the other day, and she's, I think, 68 this year. And I said, if you didn't know your age, if you had no idea how old you are, how old do you think you are? And she was like, probably 25. I don't think old people are old. I think they're young people in old bodies.
Yeah, I think it's I would agree. The birthday thing at some point, it's like, who cares? How old are you? I'm turning 39. It's a marker, but I don't feel 39.
No,
at all.
You care more about your taxes than that.
100%. Well, I go back to the thing about age though that's interesting to me is I watched The Godfather. I don't know why I did. This was probably 4 weeks ago. And the characters in that movie are just they talk about well-written, whether it's a book, a movie, etc. They're just well put together. They're well acted, but they're well thought out. Mm-hmm. And Man, I sat and stewed on that movie for a long time because, Sonny, the son who gets, forgive me, folks, as I rehash The Godfather, but Sonny is the second oldest brother, but he's the head of the family when his father is in the hospital. And he is very, very emotional. And I see a lot of myself in that. Mm-hmm. And so you go, how do you draw a man who is, they're in war. They're at war with everybody because they tried assassinating the Godfather. And how do you draw him out of a castle surrounded by machine guns and everything else? By his emotion. And I was like, as I could see it happening, I didn't even realize it's like I'd forgotten the first go around. And then and so they beat his sister. But they do it in a way that he wouldn't suspect, right? In a way that had happened way at the start of the show. His brother-in-law, who he introduced to his sister, well, he's a drunk, and he beats on his sister. And he tells him earlier in the show, you do it again, I kill you. And so what happens? He gets approached. I mean, this is what comes out at the end of the movie, right? He gets approached. He beats his sister again. She calls, and he goes tearing off before anyone can stop him, and they follow him, and lure him out. It's emotion. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I sat and talked to one guy about, what was the red pill moment you had? And he goes, 9/11. And now you're thinking buildings, you're thinking a whole bunch of different things. And he just said it was the way my blind rage took over. I'm like, really? He's like, oh, yeah, I was ready to kill everyone. You touch us, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, watching The Godfather, I'm like, man, this is brilliant. This is absolutely, this is how they get the population over and over again, right? We just want to be left alone, and then they stir it up. Your emotion takes over. You stop critically thinking because it's elbows up, it's Team Canada, or it's, go the other way, it's Nazis, it's racist, whatever word it is. They play on your emotions, and our emotions cloud us, and all of a sudden, you're out exposed, and not only 10 bullets in you, but they light them up. There's probably 1,000 bullets in him at that scene. They make sure he is never coming back from it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, quick question, because I've been saving this question. I haven't asked any of my Canadian friends since I've been back for the last couple of days here.
Well,
I gotta
feel
save
honored.
this. Yeah, I gotta save this one for Shaun because I'm sure he knows. What in the hell is an elbows up? Because I've been down in the States for the last 6 months, and I see this popping up on certain Canadians' feeds, and they're talking about elbows up as if it means something or that I know what it means, and I neither of those things are true. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I haven't seen people do. Is this a thing people are doing now? What is this?
It's a hockey reference.
Tell me.
I forgive me, folks. Is it the 60s? Is it the 70s? It doesn't matter. It's you go in the corners, you get your elbows up. And, it actually, an elbow to the face is not a comfortable thing. It'd be a penalty now, especially in today's NHL. But it's a reference back to how the game was, and how when you go in the corner and you're gonna go fight for the puck, you get your elbows up. That's what it's referencing. It's a hockey reference.
Okay. So this makes sense.
That's why he does. That's why he does
as a defensive, offensive reaction. Where
against,
you're being attacked, so you're going to
States.
Get ready to attack them back. So this is supposed to sort of justify reactionary tariffs. Is this the idea?
Yeah. To me, it's brilliant because it plays on. I would say if I was to tell you, if you take the convoy out of it, what's the last time you just like felt like Canadian? And man, I would tell you every time the Canadian hockey team puts on the Olympic jersey or Team Canada suits up. I feel like all of Canada puts down all their swords, all their guns, all their left, right, and they all just go cheer for Team Canada. It's very unifying. Mm-hmm. So what does Carney do? Elbows up. Then he gets a commercial with Mike Myers. And Mike Myers, love or hate the guy, the commercial's really freaking clever. I mean, on the flip side, like, I detest everything about it. But it's really clever. It plays off of, arguably one of the best comedians to come out of Canada. I know there's going to be lots of people that, but come on.
Yeah, I watched Austin Powers 3 times in theaters.
Austin Powers was awesome. It was great. So they put Austin Powers, or Mike Myers, and Mark Carney in Team Canada jerseys, and they banter the way we used to banter 20 years ago, and then they go elbows up, and they're at the rink, and it's very culturally, like, Yeah, let's put on our Team Canada jersey. Let's get elbows up. These guys know what's going on. They're talking hockey. They're not looking at fancy socks and he's got great hair. No, these are two guys know what's going on. It's very, very clever.
So this speaks back to your point, though, is that you can't motivate people based on logic or reason or sensibility. You motivate them by their emotions.
That's why I like Michael Corleone. And Michael Corleone, if you watch the movie, is the brother they should have killed. Michael Corleone becomes the new Godfather, and he kills everyone at the end, right? He goes out and wipes out all of his enemies. And he is very calculated, almost too far. And so he looks back, and he never shows any emotion, and he waits, and then he waits some more, and then he waits a little bit longer until they all think he's forgot about it, and then he whacks them all. And Sonny was I think a lot of Canadians are like this. I know I'm like this. You can get my emotions wound up real fast. I see something, it just sparks me, and, some people laugh at it. Some people, think it's awesome because, it shows some emotion, right? But to me, it blinds you. Michael Corleone, why I like the film, is like there's all these different character arcs, all these different, very well written. And there's Michael Corleone. And he sits there and he takes notice of everything. Okay. This is what we're going to play. That's fine. And he waits and he waits and he waits. And, right now I watch the Canadian public and they can't all be like that. But but 9/11 went and I didn't have any critical thinking, 2020 came to 2022. There's a lot that didn't have critical thinking then. Right? So, in fairness, it works because we're seeing it play out over and over and over again. You play on you see what sparks emotion, and then you push on it. That's why Trump, I assume, kept pushing on the 51st state thing, is the emotion it exuded. Now, it's kind of interesting to watch because I'm like, now what I see is him going on, the one was the Fox News, where the lady's like, you can't be serious, you want the Liberals to win, and Trump... right? Because every rational person knows who the Liberals are. I'm not saying every United States person does, but people who are in the realm of covering politics get what Justin Trudeau was.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is playing on it still. Oh no, Liberals are way easier to work with. You're like, what is he doing? Does he know that Alberta is on the brink of possibly pushing for, and I don't mean brink as in this is easy, you flip a switch and boom, it's done. But certainly Carney gets in. There's going to be some conversations had here in the days to come. We're 11 days away from that. By the time this airs, we'll be 8 days away from it. 7 days.
Man.
I don't know if any of that made sense.
No, it does. I mean, this is my big issue with the whole thing right now is there's all of the talking points, all of the talking heads, all of the sound bites are talking about tariffs. It's talking about Trump, talking about tariffs. What's the tariffs today? What's the Trump tariffs today? What's the Trump tariff? And it's all, we've got a federal election coming up in Canada, and what are they talking about?
Trump.
Tariffs, Trump, tariffs, Trump. It's the stupidest thing. It's has everybody forgot the last 5 years? How goddamn hard is it to remember Justin Trudeau and what he did over the last... Look, did the pandemic not happen for everybody who's going to vote right now? Because if it did, there is no actual choice in this. You cannot put those people... It's like they've got a rotting corpse of what Canada was in front of them, and they're saying, look over here, tariffs, Trump, look over here. Please don't look at the thing we killed in front of you, all of your careers and your dreams and your families and your jobs and everything else. Don't look at that. Just remember, next couple days, next couple weeks, Trump, tariff, and because elbows up, we're the good guy, make sure to vote for us. And I'm looking at the graphs and charts right now. Now, granted, I don't really trust polls that much, but go to CBC right now and pull up the chart, and you'll see the Liberals coming down like this until about March 15th, and then they go like that, straight up and down. It's the most ridiculous, goofy hockey stick you've ever seen of a chart. I'm like, this cannot be real, but at the same time, I'm thinking, to the degree that Canadians are gullible, to the degree that they've proven that they're gullible or at least malleable over the last 5 years, maybe I don't put it past them. Maybe we're going to get a Carney like CBC says we are, and maybe they deserve it. That's my rant.
Well said. At this point, there's more and more Albertans, I would say, even people, we sit right on the border, and Saskatchewan folk, say maybe Carney's the best thing that can happen.
Well, think of it like this.
Speed up the decline or speed up the pain.
Sure. Well, think of it like this. What does your body do when it gets sick? Generally, you get a fever. Why would you want to have a fever? You feel terrible. You have a headache. You're sweating. You're nauseous. You want it all to end, and it can last for hours, days. You can be in bed just sweating and hallucinating at 103 degrees. Why would your body do that to you? Well, it cranks the heat up. It ratchets the heat up until, guess what? You can burn out whatever is making you sick. And sometimes it takes like that suffering to get there. And I mean, use whatever analogy you like. I don't think that we're cranked up hot enough to fix whatever is killing Canada from the inside, because there's something festering at the highest level of Ottawa that nobody is actually excising right now. And I don't think that Pierre is going to be the solution to that, but at the very least, he'll probably be like a respite. And if that's the best that we can get federally right now, maybe that's good for Canada. It's definitely better than a Carney as far as federal politics and the problems he's going to bring in will be. But we're in Alberta right now. I mean, now we're on the border of it here in Lloydminster, but we're in Alberta, and it might be one of the worst things that could happen if we continue to keep our boat tethered to the anchor of Canada. Now, I know that you've been talking to a lot of different separatists and people that are separatist sympathizers. I would probably throw myself in with that lot right now. And it's not because I hate Canada. I've been a Canadian my whole life. It's because whatever Canada is or has become or has infested it at this point, we have an opportunity as Albertans to actually disconnect from that. And at least for the people that are willing to join onto that movement, it could be the best part of Canadian history, to be honest, even if we're not part of Canada anymore. And it's not that uncommon throughout history. Like, human life is what, 100 years? 76 if you look at the average, I think 78 right now in the West. It's actually not a long time in historical standards, where if you were to go back 100, 200, 300 years, borders change all the time. I looked at a time lapse of borders changing since Christopher Columbus hit North America, and it ratchets through 500 years of just, it looks like meandering rivers moving at high speeds. The borders are changing constantly. Like Mexico used to run all the way up to Seattle. Like the borders changed all the time. And just because we've lived in a world where we feel like, well, these borders are the ones I was born with and they're never going to change because they've never changed so far, who's to say that they're not? Who's to say that they shouldn't? Who's to say that they won't? And everybody seems to be making this big to-do over, well, we can't secede because we're part of Canada. Why? Do we have to be? Do we follow them to the grave if that's where they're headed? Because why? Because of a flag? Because of elbows up? Like, tell me exactly why. Because meanwhile, we're sitting on some of the most resource-rich land, some of the most ingenuitous people in history that have been doing nothing but just being drained by the succubus of Ottawa. And for what? Because we're nice and say A and we all like coffee and hockey, and it seems so nonsensical to look at it from a third person's perspective why Alberta would even want to continue on, that I don't even think it's an argument anymore about should we. It's a question of how do we get out of it? You know what I mean? Like, what are your sensibilities on this?
Well, what I was just wanting to look up real fast. Yeah, 1965. So 1965 is when the current Canadian flag got, so like when you talk about things haven't changed in our lifetime, in my father's lifetime, albeit when he was really young, they got a brand new flag. Mm. And I didn't realize this until you start reading some history books or start talking to some people.
Yeah, you think it went back 150 years if you never read that.
Yeah, well, and you wouldn't know what the red... I remember the first time I heard the red ensign. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then you talk to some people who are probably 75 to 90-ish in there. And I'll tell you, people were pissed because they had fought in both world wars with the red ensign on their shoulders, or that, and you wonder why everybody went back to Britain. Well, because, I mean, literally the red ensign, it's pretty much British flag, but you can really see the connection. Mm-hmm. And so, in our time, in my parents' time, we've had a giant change, which is a flag. Okay, now he's had a big change, a little change. Take your pick. in our lifetime, we've had the national anthem changed. I mean,
Yeah.
that's small, big, whatever you want to call it.
How about a new territory? We've got none of it. That didn't exist, 15, 20 years ago?
Probably, yeah. Probably about that. And so you go like, things are changing all the time. It's just that this idea of Canada. And, like I go back to, I had Vesper, Clyde, and Tooz on the show. And I argued, I don't know, is this 6 months ago? I can't remember. It was a live stream. And I just was like, no, I'm Canada. No. And it's funny because it took me a month. Was it 3 months? And then I started digging into it. The more I dig into it, and you tack on all the conversations I've done. And I love Canada. I want nothing more than to stay a part of Canada. Like, I mean, yeah, but there's a huge but there. Mm-hmm. It's like were all the doctors and nurses evil in COVID? No, God, no. But but there's still a problem. Mm-hmm. We still have to address the problem, and it is in their field. There is a problem in law right now. It doesn't make every lawyer awful, but you can see that there's a problem there. And politicians, are they all evil? No. But can we agree that there's a problem there? There's a problem there. Mm-hmm. Are we going to fix it or aren't we going to fix it? And when you look at Canada as a whole, there's just a lot going on. And you keep, if we get enough politicians in there and we, maybe we could change. And then you just start digging into the law and you're like, this is set up to work exactly how it's working. Yeah. So the only paradigm shift we can actually do, and I want to make this very clear that I don't even know if I should say this on air, but, I'm not advocating for this, but you bear arms, you go back to how the Americans did it, okay? Or you do it by the rules of the law.
Okay, I got some questions for you on that because I've listened to a lot of your very well-educated guests talk about the law, talk about the precedents that were set through the effects that Quebec tried to separate back in the 90s,
Clarity
et
Act,
cetera, et cetera. Yes, and they go deep on this stuff. And I'm thinking while I'm listening to this, I wonder what Shaun actually thinks about the viability of this, because when I hear it, how it bounces off my ears is, hey, we've got this really cool dog and pony show that we can put you on the treadmill for over here if it makes you feel better about separation, where best case scenario, which you probably won't get to best case scenario, you can come to the table with your masters in Ottawa and they'll give you a couple more scraps and you can go back happy. That's basically how it feels. And meanwhile, I'm looking at this just as a cursory glance through a historic lens, being, when was the last time an emperor or an empire allowed for one of their most prosperous nations, colonies, satellites to just amicably separate? When has that ever happened? Show me one instance, because I will tell you, A, I guarantee you it never has, and B, the only reason it ever has happened is because they bore arms. And look, again, I'm not that guy who's going to be like, everybody should, shoot your masters kind of thing. But realistically, I don't see that there is a possibility without at least the threat of actual, like, this is the thing with humans, and this is true in life. This is a Nietzschean truism. The Übermensch is a real thing, okay? Might is important, and it is really the bottom lowest common denominator of, I don't want to, now what? Don't tread on me. What do you mean? What if I do tread on you? You know what I mean? It always comes down to violence is the lowest common denominator. It's been like that since the beginning of time for humanity. And people who don't believe that have never had to get in a fight before. Because you can argue and argue and argue. And where does that actually lead to? It leads to a fight starting with words, starting with body parts, and suddenly there's teeth and blood on the ground because might makes right in the very real way. Now, I don't like that that's the case. I would rather negotiate. I'm a peace first person, but I'm also a martial artist who understands that the best offense is a strong defense. If you don't know how to defend yourself or don't have the capability to defend yourself, every crook and bastard out there that wants to take advantage of you simply can. And so what happens when the crook and bastard comes up to you and says, nah, you can't separate. Good try. You didn't get what I call a clear majority in this vote. It was only 58%. We were looking more like a 62, 63. So, back to the drawing board anyways. I'd like your $70 billion next year, Alberta. Thank you very much. Maybe we'll ratchet up to 80 because things are tough. What are you going to do at that point? This is why I think a a U.S. backing right now may be the only possible solution to come out of this without anybody bearing arms, because they are the arms. They're the world arms. You know, they are the military of the empire. There's no stronger country than them, and it's not because they have the greatest exports. They have some good exports. It's because their export is war, and everybody knows it. And, you know, good and bad, they've used it for good and bad, and many, many bads that I don't really like, as anybody of student of history or even of the last 20 years knows. But if there was a possibility, an avenue, a threat of U.S. backing, if Canada wanted to get uppity with separating Alberta, because they're like, you know, we're cool with you separating. What are you going to do about that, Canada? You're going to send your, 70,000 down to fight the U.S. over it? Because you probably won't. You probably can't. Your one tank isn't going to make it the whole way. So, I mean, this sounds like a whole lot of senseless bravado, but honestly, I would love nothing more in my lifetime for Alberta to separate, and I cannot see it happening through the rule of law under the Canadian government. I just can't see it. They won't let it.
I think we learned in COVID that you park a truck and you just say, I'm not moving it. Move it. I'm not moving it. Now, if you're one person, they come, they move your truck, off you go to jail. And that's how long that lasts.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's, Randy Hillier back in the early 2000s, when there's 500 pieces of machinery, that's a different story. And then when it's 500 pieces of machinery with the public backing, meaning tow trucks don't want to show up, what happened in Convoy, or the public just supports you, and going against said protest will actually put the government in a bad light. That's, for lack of a better term, that's statesmanship. I hate the game, but I look at it and you go like, what do I actually think? I think all the rules have been set up to make us not get out. Well, and we can talk about clear everything. But I also think the table is being set over the course of decades to where there is a path, even if it is to not let you get out. Maybe it is only to sit back at the table and get a little bit more money back, or a little more freedom back, or a little more like Quebec, or whatever that looks like. But if you don't have people in a province or in an area willing to show up and just say, we're not going anywhere. Like I look at Chris Barber right now, getting, I think they're suggesting 2 years, and they want to come take away his big red, right? That's part of it. And I agree with the conversation I had earlier before I ran it, or before you got here. If they come, and they being Ottawa, to take big red, there should be, the number he threw out this morning was 30,000. I'm like, if it's only, like, it should be 50,000 people, 100,000. This is a no. You're not taking that anywhere. That deserves to be in a museum. You're not going to crush this. Are you kidding me? And the day they come is the day that everybody should be there. But the other thing I've also learned through this is anytime you stand up against the machine, and Randy Hillier would say it isn't a protest unless there's the possibility of being arrested at the end. And I think a lot of us are trying to come to terms with the fact that in order to stand up to the machine, which is our government, which is Ottawa, there's the possibility of that. And you got to be okay with that, which means you got to wrestle with a bunch of demons. You got to, lots of people are doing jiu-jitsu or boxing or some physical avenue to try and get their body that way. I know for myself, I've always played the game of hockey, and I've always witnessed another team trying to impose their will on you, right? People who say that's out of the game don't know the game, because that it's just created in different ways. I'm also learned, from a lot of historical context, how important wrestling with the idea of God and what that plays on your mind, and how you can walk in anywhere with that on your side. It's just like, do whatever you want. After you're done with me, I know where I'm going, and I'm quite okay with it. And so to me, there's a lot there. I don't know if that answers anything you're talking. Like, I get what you're asking.
Let me pull part of that out as a sort of thought experiment here. We'll use the convoy because most of your listeners were listening to you during it, as I was when I was down in the States. I used to listen to your updates as you would put out the daily,
Sure.
what's going on with the convoy for the couple weeks you're out there. And that was a great view into what was going on at the ground level for the man on the street. But let's use the convoy as a microcosm right now, because that was sort of a smaller version of Canadians standing up to Canada. Okay, there's different reasons, but it was a large group, and guess where they started from? They started from Alberta. Isn't that interesting? But anyways, they get to Ottawa, and the idea of setting up camp there was to have parley. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to sit down with the people in charge and discuss their grievances. It never happened. They were there for 3 weeks, every day. Nothing was going on. Okay, nobody would come out and treat with them. A couple conservatives would come out to get a photo op and disappear. But nobody actually from the government even dared to step. What they did is they ratcheted up the propaganda machine and said, look at all the Hitlers out here on our lawn and wrecking everything and making everything horrible and all the PTSD because of all the horns. And this is evil, evil, bad, bad, bad. By the way, we don't want to talk to them. We're not going to talk to them. So they're saying, no, we're not going to let you come to the table. Tacitly, they're saying, we're not going to let you to come to the table because you aren't actually a part of this conversation. It's not a conversation to have. Now, you can take that analog and look at Alberta versus Ottawa. You think they're going to want to even let us come to the table? They're going to ratchet up the same CBC propaganda about how Alberta bad, and they're trying to take all of the food out of your baby's mouth from Ottawa or from Quebec or whatever, and it's all these terrible people that want horrible things that aren't real Canadians, and so don't listen to them. We don't have to listen to them. Okay, they're going to play that trick. What happened after that? Well, they started trying to attack the little guy one at a time. They started coming for your Chris Barbers. They started coming for your Tamara Leaches. They started coming for all of these ringleaders and trying to cut the head off the snake, and they figured that would dispel it. What actually happened on the 14th of February, 2022, when Justin Trudeau enacted the Emergencies Act? Boots hit the ground. Boots hit the ground, hooves hit the ground, and people were forcibly pushed back by quasi-military might. And we had no answer to that. There was no answer to that because it was always meant to be a peaceful protest. That's always what it's going to come down to is, okay, time to bring the bully squad out. What are you going to do now? You're not going to do anything. You need to have a bully squad, or else that's where you're going to end that non-conversation. And again, I'm not here trying to raise arms or foment armed uprising. What I'm saying is that if there was some sort of, well, you've got this card, but so do I, then we're at parity again. This is almost like a mutually assured destruction thing, the MAD that they had between the Soviet Union and the US. Nobody wanted to use the nukes, but we could. Don't forget we could. And if you do, we will. And because of that, parity, we're null.
The only way you get to your train of thought is the pain needs to go up. Right now, you walk out this door, go talk to an average Albertan. Things are tough, but they're not that tough. And I'm probably glazing over a lot of tough things that are going on right now. But everybody has their hope, I would say, for majority in Alberta, that Pierre Poilievre is going to get in, and he's going to fix everything, and everything's going to be okay.
How do you see a Pierre Poilievre prime ministership? Say he wins in, 9 days from now? He wins, we get a conservative, let's call it minority, because at least trying to glean something from the polls, they say a majority is not even possible, which blows my mind that the Liberals aren't going to be completely washed. But, okay, they say that a minority is the best case for Poilievre to even be able to take the seat of power. What does that look like for the next 4 years? It may not even be 4 years if it's a minority. They could protest the government and grieve it into an early election.
I wonder about the polls. Tonight, as we record this, right? So we won't have this out before this happens, is the English debate, right? So to me, my eyes are set on that. I hear all the propaganda being spewed. I don't trust it all because it's coming from the same people who told me everything about COVID and everything else. Yeah. So it's like, why would I take all that for face value? Now, I do notice in people around me and different things I watch where the elbows up thing really worked. The Donald Trump being the enemy really worked. And them calling a quick election, maybe it's working. And he did remove the carbon tax, right? That is noticeable. Like people aren't, and so you watch that. Now, Pierre gets in. What does 4 years look like? My brain tells me it's going to be a slowdown of the decline. Like when I look at Carney, I think what I do for a living, he's going to try and shut it down. Like Like they're going to try and shut down. He's referenced disinformation platforms, large American ones. Who is that? Well, that'd be Elon Musk, right? That'd be X. And since Elon Musk has taken it over, does it have some glitches in it, or maybe even like things done to the sure? But compared to where it was in COVID, it's insane how much better it is. And for what I do and others do, like those are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and so you look at that right there, those two, if you had Pierre in, do I think he's shutting us all down? No. Do I think Carney's going to? Yes, I think he's going to try very hard. When you look at natural resources, do I think Carney's going to shut that down? Yeah, I do. Do I think Pierre is going to shut that down? No, not at all. And you go further down the line than that. What does it look like in 4 years, 2 years? If he gets a minority government, the rhetoric doesn't stop because they're going to attack him until they get an election again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the question is, does Pierre have the ability to hold on to power for 4 years and get things done?
This is my question, like the actual, what is it going to provide for you? Like having a respite from the Liberals is great.
A respite from the Liberals. That's probably what's going to provide.
Yeah, but this is why it feels more to me like the best case scenario is a pause. We get a little bit of pause. Everybody can breathe. We've got our 15-minute break before we go back to work and have to deal with all the nonsense again. Because sure, if Pierre gets in, again, this is on the pretense that he can only win a minority. 2-3 months ago, I would have told you it was a guaranteed
supermajority. Like
there was no chance. I mean, the Liberals had nobody to run against him. If they were going to run Trudeau, it was a guarantee that we're going to have a full conservative
Any chance
wash.
This is the Kamala Harris effect?
Definitely. There's definitely a chance of that. But I don't know, because here's the thing with the Kamala Harris effect is people think because the government or the party that is pushing the propaganda, the synthetic reality, I like to call it, they have to still come up on voting day and prove what is real reality. You can show me the fake reality all you want, but we're going to see real reality on the voting day. Not really, not necessarily, because it depends how much the people who are voting believe in the synthetic reality. So if they are malleable to what is being spewed at them constantly. I got a haircut at the barbershop the other day and he had the TV on. And the number of times I heard the words tariff, Trump, Canadian news, and talking about the upcoming elections and tariffs and Trump, I was like, this is what people are being fed on the TV 24/7, on the radio 24/7, on whatever avenue they can get, because you can't get news on social media anymore. That's something I have to remind myself of when I come back from Canada, or from the US. When I'm down in the States in Florida, I can get Rebel, I can get True North, I can get all of these alternative media sources that literally disappear from reality up here. So you want to talk about the prevalence of synthetic reality up here. It is thick.
I think that's one of the things that would change with Pierre in.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you saw it last night with the French debate. After it was done, they got to ask questions of all the debate, or all the panelists, all the leaders of the different parties. Mm-hmm. And it was Rebel, it was True North, it was Juno News, it was, it was a bunch of people that you would not expect to be allowed to ask questions. Were asked to, Singh just kept going, yeah, Rebel News, not answering your question. You already know that. So waste your blunder, but I'm not, or waste your air, but I'm not going to expand upon it. Made him look like a total asshat, right? But I mean, that was interesting to me.
Yeah, it looks very Banana Republic from the outside. But here's another question. Okay, so let's say that Poilievre gets in, and to whatever degree synthetic reality gets cut back, because he always has been talking about defunding the CBC. Now, I don't know that he's going to, because it'll be in his hands at that point if he's going to keep funding it. But maybe I just don't know the nuance of how this works in Parliament. If he were to, quote, defund the CBC with a minority government, could he still do that? Or would it be argued and shot down in Parliament? I don't know if he could still do that. Now, if he doesn't, again, what does that look like for the propaganda machine out there? And I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but dude, it's so obvious when you come up here and look at what is supposed to be mainstream traditional news. I'm like, oh my God, you might as well just have this handwritten by the Liberal Party. It's that bad. So, okay, maybe we don't have as much of that for the 2 to 4 years that we get a minority government. I was listening to why his name just jumped on my head, Jordan Peterson, the other day, and he made a pretty compelling argument, as he tends to do very clinically, about how if we get a conservative government, it's going to be a one-term thing. whether that's a short term or a full term, it's only going to be a one-term thing, because what this is going to do is going to rebound whatever margin that the Conservatives beat them with over back into the Liberals, because everything becomes Pierre's problem then. All the problems that he's inheriting are impossible to fix, and every effort he's going to try to fix them, there's not enough time in one term to fix it, so it's just going to look like he's blundering over and over, which is a lot of what I think is going on with the tariffs and Trump. If I'm going to actually put a opinion out there about tariffs, Trump, I think this is very early into a painful process that's supposed to be a long process of reclamation for their prosperity within themselves as a country. And it's either going to work great in the long run, or it's going to hurt so much in the short term that they just stop the project and then it's going to be a disaster. But I think if Pierre comes in and he tries to do all the fix-it things that he says he's going to do, and they're going to be fought like hand and fist in the parliament to even be able to get bills passed to do anything that he wants to do, it's just going to look like nothing gets done. Everything's getting worse, and now it's Pierre's problem, so let's get him out because we were better with the Liberals will be the idea. That's what Peterson was saying.
Well, I mean, at this point in time, sitting in Alberta, you go, if Carney gets in, what independence folk of Alberta have been talking about for, you can go back lots of years, because there's people that are, our elders that have been waiting for moments like these. Mm-hmm. If Carney gets in, the tea leaves or the conditions are almost perfect for the emotion. You know exactly where it's going to go. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's just going to go to the moon and back. And in order to even go down the path of referendum, you need a crazy amount of people to be on board for that. It's got to be like the number one talking point of everywhere you go in society. And right now, quietly, I would say in Alberta, people are talking about it lots.
Yeah. We're at like a rolling boil before it starts to steam.
That's right. And Carney gets in, it's just going to go absolutely apocalyptic.
Yeah, it'll be a flashpoint.
Yeah. Pierre gets in, and that's what the same people right now are talking about it, seriously or, semi-serious, waiting on the election, is it just goes back to a simmer. Mm-hmm. And just waits for the next opportunity, because the relationship's broken. Can Pierre fix it? No, you've pretty eloquently pointed out how much problems we have in Canada, and can he undo all the things? Probably not. And a project doesn't just take any project you want. It doesn't get built in the snap of a finger. Just like leaving Canada doesn't happen in the snap of a finger. Mm-hmm. Like you can throw all the problems you want at it. Oh, you haven't thought of this. You haven't thought of that. It's like, before we even get even remotely close, you need 600,000 people to sign to push for a referendum in a 90-day window, 20% of 58 of the riding, so 20% of the voters from 58% of the riding have to, I'm butchering this just ever so slightly, just to explain though, the idea is it's complex. It's not like you get 600,000 all from Lloydminster, not that we have that number. You got to get 600,000, and it's got to be across 58 ridings where it represents 20% of the previous voter turnout, whatever. I think that's how it breaks down. It's like that's going to be a very difficult challenge, right?
Yeah, you're going to be moving at the speed of federal law. Have fun with that.
Yeah,
and what kills an emotional response better than anything? It's just time. Just give it time. Everybody will sort of get stuck in the malaise of their day-to-day 9 to 5, and they'll forget about it.
How many people did you meet through COVID that were going to fight till the end? And this is no knock on any of them, because I know exactly.
It's attrition. It just takes so much out of you.
And they got an endless supply of money, an endless supply of time. Mm-hmm. Like you just sit there and wait, and that's I come back to. It's why I like The Godfather so much. Honestly, like I'm shocked that I keep talking about it, but you go watch that and you watch the patience of Michael Corleone. He just sits and watches and does a lot of the things I've been overlaying. Shout out to Ken. We were talking to Ken on the way out to the studio, and he was talking about trying to overlay, I can't remember, Solzhenitsyn with a couple other authors and just some of their ideas and kind of put them on and kind of look at it. And I've been overlaying Proverbs with The Godfather.
I bet you nobody's done that one yet.
I have no idea. But I'm like, I watch, don't get me wrong, Michael Corleone does some pretty rough things. But I watch how he acts and the way he positions himself and everything, and then you stick on some of the things that Proverbs talks about, I'm like, like Pierre gets in, I'm not going to let it bother me. It's not the end of the world. Carney gets in. It's not the end of the world. It's just going to create conditions for something to possibly happen. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of tired of Carney gets in, the world's over. No, it's not. Yeah. It's going to keep going. There are possibilities of him getting in that could turn out to be the greatest thing or the worst thing, somewhere in between. Are we all eating bugs in 10 years? It's possible. Or a whole chunk of people leave Alberta or Canada. We've already talked about that. Mm-hmm. We already know a ton of people that have left or are leaving or will leave if that scenario plays out. It's we got choices to make at all times. And I don't know. I'm almost like gassed out of talking about this election. I'm just like, let's just get it done with. Let's just see. Yeah. I know my vote. Am I voting, folks? Yeah, I'm voting. And I just know out in the West it means almost nothing. Yeah. I got to wait and see what the East does. Mm-hmm. It's probably the most frustrating thing about starting to look into Canadian politics. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, one of the most emasculating feelings is federal election comes, you did your vote, you're watching it being tallied live on the TV, and the voting is already a foregone conclusion before we get to Manitoba. It's like, my vote's still 2 provinces over. It's over? Mine didn't count? It's done? It's mathematically impossible now? Every single time. It's like, well, what did Quebec and Ontario do? Because that's what it is. Sorry, guys. Anyways, waiting for that next 70 bill. Yeah, there's a reason why there's that broiling in Alberta. And you know what's interesting? So I was looking at an article from our mutual friend Corey Morgan the other day, and he had a political cartoon at the top of it, which was just so perfect. It had a cow that was stretching over Canada from Ottawa, and it was grazing and being fed by Alberta and Saskatchewan, and
being
milked by
it's
the
an
people.
Old cartoon.
Yeah, that cartoon is 115 years old. Over a century old, and nothing about that has changed. If anything, it's only gotten worse. Generationally, how many generations since then? 3, 4 generations?
Well, my great-grandfather moved here in the family farm started in 1911. So
yeah, that was 1910.
It was 1905, roughly. Yeah. So that's why I come back to it. And I don't bring up, once again, The Godfather as in, like, in the next 3 years, you just be patient and we're going to get this. It's like, once upon a time, I thought there's no way, I've said this story lots, I apologize, that a government or a group of people could be as patient as waiting years, months, years, decades. And then I read Solzhenitsyn, and he talks about the big game of solitaire, right? Mm-hmm. And you read that, and it's almost like, well, crap, I was wrong there. And when you look at that cartoon, you go, it just shows you how hard to get a population to come together to throw off the shackles of an oppressor truly is. And so you go back to like, well, get trained up. Maybe you got to park a couple semis over here and block the road, and we're not moving it, and we're doing our own thing. Well, maybe, I don't know. But like 115, 120 years later, like what's changed? Lots of things, but not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And the rules are designed to make sure that you can't.
Yeah.
And it leaves you one way out, or a couple ways out, let's say. Mm-hmm. And one way, they know, who's going to do that? I think the number I heard was 3% of the population. So if you had 3% of Alberta, let's say, bear arms, once again, not suggesting this, just that if you had 3% of the population bear arms, that's roughly how the U.S. got independence or freedom.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny to watch. You could never have planned or orchestrated the American Revolution because it was over, a 2 or 3% tax on tea? Like, it was a nonsense thing. It wasn't the actual tax that started the revolution. That was just the flashpoint in the pan.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's right. And they started the Boston Tea Party. Nobody could have planned. This is going to be the uprising of the colonies when we throw a bunch of British tea into the ocean.
Look at the convoy. Like
exactly.
They literally locked us out everywhere.
People tried
all
to.
All of a sudden, and Dad said this to me because Dad's a trucker. He says, you wanna stop a country, or you want to stop Canada? Piss off the truckers. Well, what happened? They pissed off the truckers, and all of a sudden there's a convoy, and voila, you're out of the situation.
You couldn't have planned that, because guess what the Americans tried to do after that? Do you remember the American convoy? How did that go? Didn't happen. You couldn't actually plan that. That was a spontaneous thing that was more of the spirit of the people of the time than it was some orchestrated plan. And so I don't know what type of plan it takes to actually get an Alberta independence in the future, because I don't think you can create that. I think it needs to be organic. And again, if it's something as silly as 3% tax on tea that pushes us to actually start uprising or standing up for our own sovereignty or individuality, maybe that's what it is. And what that looks like here, I don't know. In the meantime, though, I keep feeling that sentiment, listening to you, listening to the people you have on, talking to people that, I trust their opinions of. It's like everybody in Alberta is so ticked off about what's going on right now. They're either they're almost like they're hitting their amygdala right now, where you've got your lizard brain fight or flight response. We're either going to flee or we're going to fight. And that's just like, who's going to get their back up and who's going to get the hell out. And it feels like that's one of those. And I mean, this could all be hyperbole too. This could all be a whole lot of bluff right now with a bunch of people that are just mad and want to air it out. But we'll see, because it's only going to be less than 2 weeks before we see when the rubber hits the road.
My brother sent me an interesting article by Doomberg. Forget what this was. How long ago? Sorry, it was. Was it a week ago? It doesn't matter. About the origins of the Alberta population.
What do you mean?
So when the settlers came, where they came from, and I forget the number. I think it was 75 or 80,000. Here, let's see. Where did I pull this up from? Give me 1 second, folks. Here, let's pull this up. I want to say. Got too many group chats going on. That's going to be my problem.
I feel like there'd be a significant amount of Ukrainian in there.
Here's Doomberg. Says, if this all seems rather American, it's because it practically is. The event was conceived in 1912 by an American trick roper, Guy Weidlich, who ventured north in the wave of U.S. immigrants lured by Alberta by a government eager to welcome them. During a 15-year period, approximately 82,000 Americans arrived in the province, and by 1916, those of American birth constituted, read it out loud, Shaun, nearly 19% of the total population. So the characteristics assigned to America's classical liberal, it goes on and on and on. So when you see, why is Alberta the outspoken one? He's pointing to the fact that back in 1916, 1 in 5 Albertans were actually Americans. And you think, like,
that makes sense.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? All came up here, got land, and have bled and fought, and maybe not fought, bled and been a part of the story that this is. Yeah, there's a huge Ukrainian background in this too. There's a huge group of settlers that came from Britain and all over the place to be in Alberta, and there is the pioneer spirit there mixed with, as this article points out, an American spirit.
Yeah, that's a hard-fought ethos too. They had to go through a lot to get to that level of don't fuck with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's something that you have to earn. It's not something you can say pretty please to the master for. And they fought and bled over, a war for independence, then a civil war on top of that. And like fighting and dying for your beliefs is so deeply ingrained in the American ethos, even to today. You can go down to any state you want, the most liberal state that you want down there, and talk to the most liberal person. They will still say that they'll die for their beliefs. And you'll believe it too, because they stand their ground, and that's something you don't find everywhere else. It's a fascinating part of the experiences I've had down over the last few years, because I never really went to the States much before we started moving around back in 2021. And since then, it's become very obvious the difference in temperature and the difference in flavor and sentiments between this invisible line that we've drawn across a particular parallel. And I wish that there was more of that ethos up here in Canada, but maybe it's something, again, we've got to work for ourselves. It's like gaining wisdom, right? You can read it in a book, but until you learn from your own experience, are you actually going to apply it?
Well, I mean, the military guys I have on would tell me it's only less than 100 years ago that the allies, the generals, the leadership loved having Canadian troops because they were a bit crazy and they were tough and they went and did things that most couldn't do. And so, we remind, we just had For the Kids' Sake last week, and we had our meeting, and Dustin's speech was basically, we're descendants, of not that long ago, within our memory, people who came here and had to struggle and survive. And, whether you're talking war or whether you're talking hockey, there's a ton of kids make the NHL from farming Western family types because they worked hard, they were strong, they knew how to be mean and kind all at the same time. The warrior in the garden type thought process. You being, jiu-jitsu, you knew all about that. And that's all just sitting there. The narrative tells us we're these nice people and that we can't stand up for our values. I say bullshit. It's just, you got to get comfortable with that. And for too long, we haven't had to stand for much. We've been, watching the Oilers play. I got nothing against the Oilers. Or whatever, I watched a meme from China of the Americans, right? Of them taking back
the factories,
and it's all these like 400-pound guys sitting there working in the kind of the sweatshops idea, and I'm like, well, that's a generation, and it's not a terrible meme, right? Like, I mean, in Canada, you want to be strong and free. Well, you got to put your government in place in order to do that. Like, the government doesn't have what we want for our best interests at all. Like, the people running this country right now, I've just started calling them the liberal mafia.
Yeah.
They don't care about the consequences of their actions because there is none.
There's none.
So they're just pilfering us. And then they're talking about all these high values of treating people with respect. Meanwhile, they don't. And they're trying to say that, all these people need to be equal. Meanwhile, they don't do that in their life. They're taking one of the most simple things in biology and making it like you can be anything, which is insane. You got MAID, you got free drugs. Like, it just goes on and on and on. We got free healthcare. No, we don't. Like, come on, folks, do a little digging. I'm not talking to my audience because they're brilliant, but like the free healthcare, as Tristan Hopper writes in his book, it's the most expensive free healthcare in the world.
Not only is it expensive, you get almost nothing for it. And
Right.
I'm not, again, attacking nurses and doctors out there that are hardworking and doing the best they can under AHS rule, but try to go get some sort of test done. Go and get it ordered by your doctor. Let's say, here's an example. I've got a friend or a friend of a friend who needed a cancer screening for something that her family doctor says, we think you may have cancer in your organ. We're going to need to get you in for this diagnostic to determine whether or not you have cancer. 13 months she's on the waiting list before she can even have the diagnostic test done. Tell me about your free health care. Because if you were to pay $500 in a private clinic, you could have it today. But no, we're going to wait 13 months for what might be a metastatic cancer? Cool. That's what we're paying for, hey? That's our free healthcare. It's such a joke when you actually try to use it. I've had this happen too. I blew my knee in a tournament, actually in Saskatchewan, the only tournament I ever did in Saskatchewan. It didn't turn out well for me.
Good memories.
Yeah. I had to drive back in a standard from Regina. Thank God all the roads are just straight and I didn't have to shift much because it was my clutch leg, but I blew it. We were talking to Keith Rutherford before this. It was my LCL. I popped my LCL really bad on that particular occasion. You could hear it 2 mats away. It was like a hammer hitting a block of wood, just pow, and blew my knee. So I get back to Alberta. I'm like, man, this is stiff. This sucks. It's all swollen and colored. I got to find out what type of damage I got here because there's 3 different degrees of tear you can have on your ligaments. You can have it first, second, or third. And if it's, I think the third is the worst one, that's a full separation. And now I need surgery, and I need to know if it's first degree, that's good. It can heal on its own, especially the LCL. It gets the most blood flow, so it can actually heal on its own. But I gotta know, so I know how to treat it, so I know how to rehab it, so I know if I need to have surgery or not. So I go into the doctor and he does a couple tests. Like, yeah, okay, there's something wrong with your knee. What we're gonna do is we're gonna schedule a test. Okay, 16 months. I'm like, 16 months to find out if my ligament is detached? What am I supposed to do in the 16 months? I'm a welder at this point still. I'm going to work and putting on my steel-toed boots for 16 months to find out if my knee is missing a ligament connection. Nonetheless, I'm teaching and training jiu-jitsu at the same time 5 times a week. What am I supposed to do about this? And it's like, well, it's really not my problem. You know what I did? $500, went to a private clinic, had it the next day. And thank God it was only like the, first degree. It was the least amount of tear. So it was like, okay, at least I know that this will heal on its own. All well and good. But again, if it was, okay, so let's say that I didn't know about that or didn't have the money for it or whatever, and I didn't get the diagnostic. I waited 16 months, but don't worry, you're on a backup list. Maybe somebody drops out.
When I tore my meniscus, by the time I got in to have it, to have the scan
Imaged,
on it, yeah. And then get to physio. By the time I got to physio and had the image and then to physio, she's like, so what have you been doing on this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've been stretching it and, I've been doing these different things. And she's like, well, I would have said you need surgery, but surgery is only going to get it back to where you have it right now. So you're actually, by getting surgery, you're going to actually put yourself behind schedule. Yeah. So she's like, don't do that. And so, I just come back to, it sucks that it's like you don't want to, I don't think any of us want to hear the frogs and boiling water thing. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about you and others is you leave. And then you come back and you sit around and you look around and you're like, this is strange. I can't believe you live in this world, all the time. And when you're living in it, maybe it's 2 degrees over here, or maybe it's 2 degrees every single day. I actually don't know. But, you walk outside, sun's shining. It's not so bad. I haven't been shot at. I don't know. I'm being a bit of a jackass, but you know what I mean. And yet, if you leave this place for a year and come back, you're like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. And you just didn't it's like little things, like the grocery bill. Simple. Like when Mel first moved here, when I first moved back, 2012, you could fill a cart full and probably not pay as much as we're paying now. No. And then you go the weights. The weights have always been there if you go to Emerge, right? But since my 3rd child was born, so 2019, somewhere in there, we've never had a family it's almost been impossible to get a family doctor.
Yeah.
Impossible. So you're like, and now Mel's got in with somebody, but I still don't have a family doctor, Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know. Right? And we keep all trying to find these workarounds. It's not so bad. It's not so bad, right? I get a text. I guarantee if I look at my phone right now, I've had one text asking for Dr. William Mackis because somebody has cancer. This happens every single day. Every single day I get a text, and people are desperate, and they want his contact because they want to find a way, and they can't get into anything in Canada. Yeah. And so that's one of the things. It's like the homeless thing. Or the drugs or whatever, it's like, is having homeless on your streets a bad thing? Well, it's probably always going to be there. But, like Lloyd, was it 250? Was it 175? I don't know. It's most, I think, Lloyd's had in modern memory. I don't remember, you drive around the city right now, and you're going to see some odd things. Yeah. I go just circumstantial. Mel and I would go to a movie. Love going to the movies. Not so much anymore. I find myself going,
all you see is the propaganda.
All you see is the propaganda.
It's so hard to watch some stuff.
But we go for supper. We got a little spot we like to go, and then we go for a walk around downtown Lloyd, and then go to the movie. This is a year ago. So this is how long it's been since me and her went to a movie, just the two of us. And it was the last time that we're talking like 6 o'clock in Lloydminster on like a Thursday, Wednesday. It was middle of the week, and it was eerie. There was like 4 homeless dudes. 2 of them are high as a kite, screaming their heads off, and you're like, what is going on? I actually felt a little bit, not nervous, like, yeah, I can handle myself, but like with my wife, this is strange.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to feel that, right?
These are all things that are just percolating, no different than this conversation about Alberta independence, separation, 51st state, take your pick on which one you like. It's just, you look at it and go, all these things are happening simultaneously, and we're all going, oh, this is not that bad. It's not that bad. And yet more and more people are leaving. More and more people, if Kearney gets in, are out the door. And you're just going to see more and more neighbors out the door because we're heading for, heard it in a conversation yesterday. It's like we're heading for communism if we aren't already in communism, right? We're in this weird world where, like we've been in this weird world for a long time. Has it been since 2015? I'm sure I got some people listening. It's been a lot longer than I give it credit for. I always say 2021 because that's when I first started talking openly about it and then saw the backlash and some of the hope that came from doing both things, simultaneously.
Yeah, some people would say it was from the first Trudeau, back in the 70s. That was a big sea change then when it came to progressive ideology that sort of infected Canadian sensibility in politics. But, I mean, obviously the number one thing you can do is just take care of yourself. I always have to remind people of that on my show because I get really, really black pill sometimes with some of these things. It's too easy, right? Because it's very easy to see the problems and it's very hard to see the solutions. And on top of that, most of the solutions aren't even going to come from you. So you feel kind of impotent trying to just struggle through the effects of it. Like, for example, the other day, my wife told me to go pick up a 4 liter of milk and cream, coffee cream. All right, so I go to the grocery store. Now, I haven't gotten a 4 liter of milk and 1 liter of coffee cream in Canada for 6 months, but I'm pretty sure the last time I was here, it wasn't $14. I could not believe how much money that was. I'm like, what is a shopping cart at Costco going to cost me? This is kind of wild. And it feels like it's accelerating, which is, it tends to be the way things go, right? Everything is great until it's not, and it happens fast. And I think that the real barometer is going to be, we were talking before the show about this, I think it's an economic model, but it's more of like a demographic model called HOP, H-O-P. It stands for human osmotic pressure. And the idea is, think of like closed systems. So, I mean, a balloon or a cell of some sort where you've got a membrane or a border. And the balloon is probably the best example because you can take a balloon that's a closed system. There's air on the inside that can't get out. If you were to push on that balloon in any particular spot, it moves outwards from the pressure. Now, the idea of human osmotic pressure is in a human system, so say a country, you put pressure on the people, whether it is economic pressure, as famine, whether it's war, all of the typical historic reasons why people and populations get under pressure. What they're going to do almost automatically, almost without them having to think about it, is they're going to flee from the pressure. And what that looks like in a country sense is you're going to get people exfiltrating out. They're going to be expats. They're going to
have a bunch of people
expatriate because what happens when you have too much pressure in one system is you're going to have negative pressure in other systems that attract that excess pressure. For example, we were talking about Japan before this because there's major population decline in Japan. We could go on and on about why that probably is. But nonetheless, they've got a replacement value on average just above or just under the 1 right now. And it's supposed to be 2.1 to be able to replace your generation into the next generation. Everybody needs to produce, a child per person kind of thing. They're producing average 1 per 2 people, which is of course going to half their population. Give it time. And they've got a real estate issue right now called Akias.
It's one of those things, it's one of those things when you talk about replacement population, right? And you do it's like one of those things, it takes so long to get there and then one day it's just there.
Yes.
And you're like, crap, right? And then you're, now explain the housing.
Well, Japan's trying to do a whole lot of things to try to mitigate this right now, and good on them. They're actually seeing the problem and trying to address it. But I mean, they're doing things like breeding visas. No shit. They've got something called a breeding visa, where if you've got Japanese genetics, they will let you on a visa come over and impregnate people. They're very serious about trying to repopulate right now in Japan. And just looking at the real estate, they've got these things called Akias, which is Japanese for abandoned home. And right now...
Can you imagine? What are you doing? I got a breeding visa. Where are you going? Japan.
Going to see some geishas, baby. Woo, let's go.
Yeah, what are you doing there? Well, I'm going to have a lot of sex.
Yeah.
I'm literally going to try and impregnate as many people as I can.
And the government's all for it.
It's government's encouraging it. They would love me to come over and help them with their population crisis.
Well, we can tie these two things together because what an Akia is, again, is an abandoned home. And as of my last foray into the count. They estimate around 9 million abandoned homes. Abandoned. Nobody lives in them. They're despotic. They're just sitting there with some of these. It's kind of eerie. You go on to these sites that will show you the real estate's guide to the inside of what they look like. Some of them are just, you can see people were living there. Their books, their boxes, their TVs all come with the house. It's like they just disappeared, like the rapture happened off the face of the earth. And there's just millions of these homes that have nobody in it. And so that's negative pressure that's going to bring an influx of people from other countries into it. And for example, they're going to try to tie these two things together. I've come across certain Akias that are $0. You can get like a 2-story house for $0, but you must be a family of at least 3 kids. They want to make sure that they're not just bringing in people, but they're bringing in people that will repopulate the area. And so there's some of these will have caveats on it that's like, no, you need to be a young family under this age. And then we'll let you have a free house. Because it's not just the house that's our problem. The problem is there's nobody
we need the population.
Exactly.
Can you imagine we all get a community to just go over. Like, think about it. Play out my idea for 10 seconds. And then shout out to Ken again, because, he's always pushing on me with all these different ideas. But can you imagine if a whole, just group, everybody listen to this podcast, the SMP group of people that tune in every single day. Everybody just got a free, assuming a lot of us are similar age and have kids, and I know that's not exactly true, but let's just say it played out that this would work. A whole group of us just went over and got free houses, got to live in them, and even if it cost you, like you were looking at houses like 17 grand Canadian to get, what did you say, a 10-bedroom
house.
A 10-bedroom house for $17,000.
With an ocean view. This is like 1 block from the ocean.
Yeah, I might just do that just to, have a vacation
just for a getaway. The people are doing this right now. They're turning them into Airbnbs. They'll go over on a visitor visa for 3 months. They'll buy and renovate a house. They'll flip it for an Airbnb while they're gone. And then when they want to come visit, they can just stay in their house. And it's a passive income. I know one guy that does it full time. He's got like 6 or I think 8 houses now. He's got a YouTube channel. I looked at him, and he shows you how to buy it, how to go through the Japanese real estate people, the people who are good with what they call gaijin, which are foreigners, and how to deal with them in English and stuff. And they'll walk you through the process for a couple $1,000s, and then you can get your $10,000 8-bedroom house and have it renovated for another $5,000, $10,000. Some of them are ready to walk in and even have appliances, like I said, because people are just gone. And what people are doing is turning it into businesses. They've got like a whole little gambit of Airbnbs that they can get now a business visa to live there permanently in one of their 8 houses. It's bonkers, man. There's so much opportunity right there. But to come back to the point, you're going to find when there's high pressure, low opportunity areas, they're going to migrate without even having to try into low pressure, large or open opportunity areas. Japan's just one example. Who's the name of the guy you had in the last Cornerstone?
Mikkel Thorup.
Mikkel Thorup. He will
talks about Panama.
Give you a laundry list of countries that you can not only move your wealth into, but you can move yourself into for a fifth of the price in Canada.
But the thing about what you're talking about with Japan that makes, because one of the problems I heard with Mikkel is just how much money it takes. It takes a lot of money to do some of the things he's talking about. Now, if you got the money, doesn't matter. When you start throwing around $17,000 for a 10-bedroom house, and
I'll show you some pages after this that'll blow your mind.
You're like, huh? That doesn't make any sense, right? You're like, I get it. I don't have that type of money sitting around, but I feel stupid not to do it, right?
Take a loan out for that.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And in a month's time, 17,000 Canadian, isn't worth a whole lot anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can find this stuff, and I would encourage people to do their own research on Akias. Everything's a mixed bag. You're going to find some that are dilapidated that aren't worth buying, but you're going to find some gems in there too. And I know people personally who have done this and gone through it as Canadians and now have a house in Japan, and they're figuring out ways to get over there. And I just think of it like 50, 60 years in the future from now, what that country is going to look like. It's kind of like bittersweet to me, to be honest, because Japan, as opposed to most countries around the world, is one of the most unique and homogenous cultures in general. Just their language. I've been trying to learn their language for the last 6 to 7 months now. Very difficult language to learn from a Westerner's point of view, because
don't you just think? I don't know why I'm hot. Apologies for cutting you off, because I find it very interesting. But I look at your story, and don't you just thank the big guy for putting COVID on you and having to make this choice, and has every day been rainbow and sunshines? No. But, like, you look at what you've done since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
You left the country, took your family, and to where you are now. And are there pressures on you? Are you sitting on, Scrooge McDuck sitting on his pile of gold? Maybe. I don't mean to
Definitely
judge.
not. I got one piece of silver for sure.
There you go. But, you look at your story of where you are, and I don't know where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
The fact you've written 3 books now, and people should where can they get this? They can't get it yet.
I'm going to give you a pre-sale for the digital. They won't let me do pre-sales for the physical. You have to get that on April 30th is going to be
Are you
the
bringing
release.
it to the Cornerstone Forum?
Would you like me to? You got a booth?
We can make something work. Certainly,
I would love a booth. I'll bring some books to a booth.
There you go. If you're coming to the Cornerstone Forum, you can come talk to Drew.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry, I just.
So yeah, I mean, the who could have predicted what the last 4 years would have been like?
like you look at it and got to be careful how I say this, but as I go along, this podcast wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I eventually get to talking about things.
Look
but
at the picture beside you.
right.
You know what I mean? That's the spirit of this podcast now. That wasn't going to come from a hockey podcast.
No. Well, so I go like, the further I get away from COVID, the more thankful I am for COVID. Like, that's a really weird thing to say.
Yeah, it feels dirty to say it, but it's also true.
Well, I mean, that's how I meet you. It's how I meet, like, a huge chunk of the audience now all came through dark times. And so, like, whatever times are ahead of us, like, I welcome it. Not that I welcome disaster. I do not want that whatsoever. It's just like, yeah, Pierre gets in, Carney gets in, whoop-de-doo. We're going to be having the same conversations and trying to figure out the way to best navigate whatever's put in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope we find some safe harbors along the way so that the journey is, still got to be done, but you can have some enjoyable times and enjoy the company and maybe a view or two and some sunny days and all the things, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's exciting at the very least. It's almost like we're living that old Chinese adage of may you live in interesting times. This last 6 months, I got to go down to the States before one of the most important elections in American history happened. I got to watch it from Texas. I got to watch the inauguration from Texas. And now I get to come up to Canada to watch one of the most consequential elections of Canadian history. Front seat. I get to vote in this one. There may even be a referendum vote this year if you're listening to the APP. Like, what a fascinating time to live in.
Ever tell you about the first time? Well, second time. But like it's like, okay, we're going to do this when I was praying. What I said to God. Did I ever tell you this?
I don't know, maybe.
Because you talk about living in interesting times. I was sitting there and I was praying. And I was like, all right, I'm willing to do, forgive me because I'm like for the people not watching, I'm kind of closing my eye, kind of looking up at the sky going, okay, let's do this. But can we just please not make it boring? I don't know why I said that.
Oh, no.
I wanted an adventure. And in my brain at that time, I thought, Christianity is going to be pretty dull. It's going to be, and it's such a silly thing to do, and you go, we live in interesting times. Yeah. Following Jesus Christ is not going to be dull, folks, at all. And I look at the world, and it's like, there's going to be, careful what you wish for, careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And it's like, we're living in some interesting times right now.
I wonder when it's all over, whatever the afterlife is going to look like, what we're going to look at this objectively from. If we can look back objectively on our own existence, we're probably going to look at ourselves like fools. How could you not have seen how obvious this path that you ended up zigzagging down would lead towards? But while you're in the middle of it, I mean, the future is always a mystery. You can make your 2-year, 5-year, 10-year plans if you want. It's, the plans of mice and men, you want to amuse God, tell him your plans kind of thing. But meanwhile, if you were to look back at the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you could be like, I see it. And I understand objectively looking back why I had to make that choice to end up where I was. I never wanted to. I ended up doing it, and thank God that I did.
I have to send a text. I just recalled. I'm like, it's closing in on a time. I have to send a text, which is really weird. That might be the first time I've ever said that, folks. But I'm like, I just realized I hadn't talked to the wife, and I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Got the radar going off. You've been married long enough to have
right.
the radar.
It's like, yeah. Let's talk back to this. Your book, you said it, but this is big news. What's the story?
So
I'm bouncing on you, but I'm like, I want to make sure we give this the light it deserves. And for people coming to the Cornerstone Forum, Drew's going to be there. He is going to have a booth, and he is going to be selling some books. I mean, one of all three of them if you want, right?
Yeah, I can bring in all three of the first two
I would love
treatises.
I would love nothing more than to help support what you've been doing. So
cool. So about the sort of premise to the storyline here, if you liked dystopian stories like Hunger Games, or if you're into anime, actually what inspired this particular story is an anime called Attack on Titan. In my opinion, one of the greatest stories written in our time. It's a shame that most people won't watch it because they don't watch cartoons. It is one of the most intricate, well-written storylines I have ever experienced. I've watched it twice through the series and probably will watch the third. I mean, you can find it all over the place. There's anime streaming sites. One's Crunchyroll. There's a few other ones. I can send you some links anyways. You can find it. It's about 92 episodes of, 20-minute episodes. But the guy who wrote it, Hajime Isayama.
Is he Japanese?
You think? Yeah, a little bit. Brilliant story writer. And
so is that some of your fascination with Japan? The martial arts?
The martial arts primarily. Partly, my daughter's the one that's more into manga and anime.
Really?
She's a phenomenal
What is it
artist.
about, to me, when I think of anime, I'm just like, I don't know, they're kind of weird-looking cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing, is if you were raised in North America, cartoons are what you watched on Saturday morning when you were 6 years old.
Correct.
If you were raised in Japan, anime is not that. Anime has very mature adult themes to it. Now, some of them are adult. I wouldn't suggest checking those ones out. But, I mean, like what you would expect from human stories like C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and
are done in anime.
And Orwell, and you'll have just as deep conversations and storylines, and like bring you to rage and tears over some of these things.
So go back to this Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
That's basically,
it's very much like that. And I wanted to, in fact, there's so much inspiration. I put a forward, and it's not in this book because it's the beta, but I put a forward.
It's on the one you sent me, because that's how I know the title.
Right.
Remember you asked if I started reading it? I'm like, I started reading it, but me and computer screens. I said this to Tristan Hopper again just this past week. There's something about trying to read something on a screen. My eyes, I don't know. I don't like it at all. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah. The way that Isayama wrote that particular story, it's kind of become a joke in the fandom that he wrote it backwards. He started with the finish and wrote it back to the beginning, because it moves in a perfect circle, where if you think about a timeline of a storyline, like leaving the Hobbit, going to Mordor and coming back or whatever, it's sort of a linear thing, or some storylines zigzag and bring you circuitously back to, your completion. The joke is with Isayama, it's basically like 3,000 chords tied into a perfect Celtic knot that's circular in every direction. Everything is a plot point and everything has an Easter egg, and it all makes sense by the end, but it makes no sense until you get there. And I wanted to build a story that was like that. So this is going to be the first in a 4-book series that is going to start off with the smallest possible circle that is going to give you a lens into what the universe is, where you're starting with a slave race called the Theutons that are trapped, sort of like Hunger Games style, under a dominant race called the Rayans. And they both have their sordid histories of what led to that, and some of it is true and some of it is false, and it will go back and forth depending on your perspective as you go. But then by the second book, we're going to expand that circle to show even more. So this first book is from the perspective of the slave race, from the Theutons. And in the second book, we're going to do the exact same chronology, the exact same timeline from the Rayans' perspective. So you're going to get to see the exact same story played out from absolute diametric viewpoints, which are going to flip who the hero and who the villain is both ways, because the obvious villain in the first book is going to be the hero in the second book, and you're going to have to play off of what that means morally, because you'll recognize that some of the choices that the heroes in this book make are actually morally atrocious, but it seemed like the right choice because they were doing it to the bad guy. And so we're going to have like these very deep and uncomfortable trolley problem scenarios where it leads good people to do bad things, but they were doing it for the right reasons, right? Truman dropped the bomb for the right reasons. We'll tell that to the Japanese in Hiroshima. You know what I mean? You change the perspective on a story and it's going to give you a whole different semblance. And that's just the first 2 books. And then after that, we're going to go into the 3rd book. Now, I haven't talked about this much publicly, but I'll give sort of a view, a 30,000 foot view down of the total storyline. The first book is called Fractures in Love. Love is going to have to do with the Thooten race. It's ingrained into their culture with their god, Grahame, who is the god of love. In the second book is going to be Fractures in Peace, which is from the Rayans' perspective, because their god, Sol, is the god of peace. And so from the god of love or the god of peace, you're going to be led into a dichotomy that I've begun writing into the second book, that one of the priests is going to make. I want to give you, I'm giving this to all my friends, this philosophical thought experiment. If, Shaun Newman, you had a choice you could either serve a cruel angel or a loving demon, who would you choose? Now, it's not something you can answer right away. You're going to have to mull over that for a while, because your answer to that is going to set you on one of these 2 tracks, either the Thooten or the Rayan track. And what you're going to find is there are some significant ups and downs to both solutions. Are you going to serve the cruel angel or the loving demon? And it's going to reflect in both of their societies and how they look at the world, how their choice is always the right one and the holy one and the proper one, and everybody else is the evil bad guy. And meanwhile, you're seeing just people put into different perspectives. And I want to do this to try to explore human morality, to try to explore the myopic view we have from certain perspectives. Everybody has a perspective, but by having a perspective, it precludes somebody else's. And so if you're to put yourself in their shoes, it actually widens. Me and you were talking about getting around in the world to feel the different experiences of other places, to expand our own horizons. Well, that's a very real thing, and you can't do it without putting yourself into other perspectives. So I'm forcing the reader to put themselves into uncomfortable perspectives and have to realize that maybe there was some choices that weren't as bad or were worse than I thought they were when I was first reading them. And then the 3rd book is going to go back in time 3,000 years and talk about the inception of these 2 races and what their histories thought happened compared to what actually happened. And that one's called Fractures in Truth. And then the final one that's going to tie everything together is going to go forward in the future into like a technocratic future of sci-fi, like 250 years in the future, where we're going to have like cutting edge science, and things are going to get a little bit more dystopian in the technocratic sense, sort of like the Matrix or something to that effect. And it's called Fractures in Time. And that will finally resolve a lot of the opening burning questions that are left in the first 3 books, and should, by the end of it, make you really want to go back to the first book and read it through and be like, that's why that happened, to make this for that reason, for that guy, for that person, for that, event. And this is my passion right now, is to make a very well-constructed, interwoven, singular, all-inclusive storyline that can just be a standalone.
I have really cool friends. I mean, I got the super coolest. I got a great audience. So many interesting human beings. I'm like, this is just. I'm excited for you. I like. When you first told me this idea, I'm like, I just love a good thought or thought process of like fiction. I don't know what it is about fiction, but your mind can take you to somewhere else. I don't know. A lot of us read 1984 for the first time in COVID. That was like you needed a cold shower after that. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is heavy. And, as a kid, I read Lord of the Rings. I read, the Hunger Games. There's just something about it is very enjoyable. And if the characters are constructed the proper way, or I don't even know the proper way, just in a way that's conducive to imagination, just like sparking, I think of just some of the greatest books I've ever read, where you're just like, wow, that character was, and I don't know, I say this every time you come back, because we usually do this. We usually do it twice a year, I would say. But this one's always special because it's a year since we've seen each other, roughly. And you're not just sitting on your hands not working on things, right? Every time you come back, you got some new idea.
Yeah,
And I'm
I can't
oh,
help myself.
This is interesting. And I hear the idea. I hear the thought process, and like, there's been different movies where they do this, right? It takes it from one perspective, then they give the other perspective, and at the end they try and tie it in a nice bow. And you know, like it's really interesting. One of them is Quentin Tarantino really does an interesting job of trying to bring in the different perspectives of the different people in his stories. And I'm sure I'm missing like 4 or 5 other great cinematographers. I think would be probably the word. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Directors,
writers,
that do this. I find the idea fascinating. I don't know. I'm like,
I'm curious to see what you think about it after you get through book 1. So I'm about 2.5 chapters into book 2. They're all going to be, by the way, 35 chapters, so that the total story arc is 140 chapters, and that's important.
The
140 is important. People who know Attack on Titan, or at least know some of the background to that, will understand.
What's the importance of 140?
So this is kind of like a cultural thing over there. It's not a literal thing, but in Japan, the number 140 represents freedom. And iconically, Izayama ended his series at 139. So they couldn't quite reach freedom. I'm going to do mine in 140 chapters because it's going to redefine freedom by the end.
That's a thought, isn't it? You know, like, people that haven't seen the new studio, okay? So you've got to see where it's kind of at. And I've never built anything before. So I have my idea of what I want it to be. And, you know, like, I can see where it's going. And certain people can see where it was going from the beginning, and others just can't see anything, right? Mm-hmm. And when I watch you talk about these things, I'm like, oh, man, it's super cool to just, like, you've put a lot of thought into how you want to do this, right? Mm-hmm. And for somebody who's been through the ringer that you have and put a ton of, you know, like a lot of people wondered, you know, what's Drew doing with his podcast? Where's that going? Why, you know, and all these different things. There's a lot of things left out to the universe to just for people to stew on, if you would. Mm-hmm. And when I hear you talk about this book and what you're doing with it, I'm like, man, this is, I find it fascinating. I wish you the absolute best in life. I hope people come in and pick up a copy at the Cornerstone, right? Mm-hmm. And get a copy of that. And you'll probably be sitting right beside Tamara Leach because she's going to have her book there too. And then Alex Trainer, I hope, is bringing his books. Alex, if you're listening to this, bring your books because, you know, there's all these people doing incredible things. But you're the first out of the group of people that I know that came through what we came through in Canada that is putting it into something that really speaks to me. That I look at it, I like the cover. I just can't wait to, you know, like, I'm like, oh. You know, like when I'm rambling, but like when I came into Christianity, I stumbled into what a bunch of Canadians already know about. And that was This Present Darkness, Frank Peretti. And I was like, I had no idea who this was. It was like virgin eyes, seen this book that I thought it was going to be a biography, and I thought in my brain I'd heard the story of Frank Peretti from somebody, and I couldn't quite put it together, and Seth Boom's laughing if he's listening to this because he'd been seeding it to me, and it's this old book. This is what I like about a bookshelf behind me now.
There you go.
Look at, it
is rickety. It's falling apart. It literally fell apart.
It's falling apart. It's Marion Morgan. Please return to Marion Morgan, whoever that is. Maybe she's passed away. I don't know.
Marion, she never got her book.
Yep, and it's got both books in one, This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. Cool. It's a 2-in-1.
I've never seen that. They call that an omnibus. I'm starting to learn the terms.
And this book, oh, man, it's just, you know, it's exactly what I needed at the exact moment in time when I needed something like that. And what is it? It's Frank Peretti's version of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? On Christianity.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Like when I hear your idea, I'm like, oh, I can't explain to you how much this is up my alley. It's right up my alley. And I'm glad you brought this because I tried doing it on the computer and I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. And I stopped because I'm just like, I stare at a screen. I'm on a screen all the time, right? This is what I do when I interview people and they're not in studio, which I'm trying really hard to get more in studio.
They're going to want to come to the new studio.
That's right. Oh, everybody I talk to about it, they're just like, I can't wait to come.
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, I stare at a screen all the time, and my eyes just want it no more. I just don't want it. I want the feel. I want the sound. I want the smell. And you're now in the realm of how my brain really takes in information. And
well, again,
I'm excited
that's
for
why it's one of the most important driving factors to push me into the fictional world, is because it's something that you can separate yourself from the malaise of your daily existence and worrying about somebody named Carney in Ontario, and separate yourself into a fictional world that feels real in your mind's eye, and you can see things. You know what's really crazy? So the first 2 books that I wrote, like I said, they felt like they were a faucet that needed to be released of the pressure that was building up.
Sure.
And a lot of the thoughts in there, I don't even know where they came from. Like, if I'm being really honest and sort of esoteric about it, I do not know. Like, I hear the term the muse thrown around in artist circles. You know what that is?
Yep.
Back in Grecian times, they had a form of god. They were goddesses called the muses. And that's actually in English where we get the term muse, museum. All of those are meant to elicit thought, because the muses were these demigods that would bring thought and intelligence and revelation to mortal man from the heavens. They would bring down the sciences and the arts. So you went to a museum, you went to see what the muses gave the artists and scientists. And there's something about that idea of thoughts being given through a writer that I've experienced in both those first 2 books, even though they were treatises that were speaking about specific ideas. But really interestingly, while I was writing fiction, because none of this stuff is real. And yet there's parts of whether it's my subconscious or whether it is a voice of a spirit that wants this story out there, that I'll come across later and be like, I didn't actually consciously make that decision. It just came to me, like naming characters or something like that. I didn't go through a list of names and what they mean. I just sort of think about what this character feels like, and they kind of feel like their name starts with an F, and I'm going to write out like a couple different iterations of what I think it is. And there's a couple instances in here. There's one that I found out after I completed that book. It was done. Like, that manuscript you got there was done. And I found that, so the city that the Theutons are trapped in, the slave race, they're trapped in 4 prefectures that encircle the city. There's like this ring of prisons essentially on the outside that's where they live, and then they go into the city as the slaves to do all of the tasks for the day for the Rayans. And I called these 4 prefectures the 4 Nais, N-A-I. There's South Nai, North Nai, East Nai, West Nai, and your protagonist is from South Nai. And it's in the first line in the book, sun rises over South Nai Prefecture of the Condemned. And I find out afterwards, because I'm learning Japanese, that one of the kanji I'm learning right now in the Onyomi reading, which is the Chinese original reading for the word inside, is Nai. I didn't know that. So the term for these Theuton prisons that they're trapped in means inside. The character that I wrote as the love interest into the second book, I wrote Suki, because, I don't know, I've got a lot of Japanese on my brain this time around. And it turns out that Suki means to like or to love. I had no idea. There's a whole bunch of these things, like the prison, the particular cell block they're trapped in is Cull 19. That came to me without ever having to think about it. And later, like chapters in, I was like, it kind of sounds like COVID-19. Like, they're trapped in Cull 19. Like, where did this stuff come from? It's so strange that I can't really even take credit for half of it, which is a strange thing to say as the author.
It's just like, I have no idea where it goes for you. But the more you talk about it, the more interested I become, just because, as I keep saying, it's like literally the way I like to divulge, the way I like to intake information, right? Like, all I do all week long, is talk to people, and lots of it is heavy. It's emotionally taxing. I almost want to cry right now thinking about it. It's just like, man alive. I have days where I get tired, and I'm just like, I'm mentally exhausted. And I look at things like this, and I'm like, I know it's going to have a tough story in there, or different parts.
It's got some scenes in there my editor cried about. She's like, you made me cry again in chapter 27.
But it's funny, like, to me, I want that. I look forward to that. Like when I first watched, because I didn't know who C.S. Lewis was. Once again, that's this journey. You talk about the picture behind my shoulder. That's that journey. C.S. Lewis was not anywhere near my life. And then, certainly I knew the story of The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, right? Narnia and everything there, but I hadn't put two and two together. And now I watch those movies with the kids, and I'm like, how is, if you make a movie about Jesus, not allowed to, Hollywood kind of shuns you. You make a movie about a lion who pretty much is the savior, and I'm like, and everything they try and do to him, that has repercussions similar to the Bible. And I'm like, anyone else getting this? I mean, and I know Christians are laughing at me right now, but like, I'm sitting there watching with the kids, and I'm like, this is wild. And you're doing your version of it in your own form. I know. I'm excited about it. I'm probably just going to, all right, interview over, get the hell out of here. So
crack into it tonight. Shoot me questions as you start reading through it. I had one of my friends and former co-hosts on my show, Matt Enns, be one of the first initial readers on it.
And what did he think?
Well, first of all, he's an avid reader of fantasy. He was in the middle of a 12.
Well, and podcast listeners will remember Matt Enns. He's been on the show. That's probably a year ago now. Him and his wife live down in Texas.
That's right. Yep. Him and Whitney. They're great people. I met them again while we were down in Texas. They're just phenomenal human beings. Canadians that fled and are absolutely killing it down there with his business, helping men keep their marriages together. It's
which
phenomenal
I got a
work.
Ton of time for.
Yeah, he's doing awesome work. But he was the one, again, that introduced me to Jung, which a lot of those ideas will resonate with people that recognize that. But anyways, when he read it, he was in the middle of reading a 12,000 page fantasy novel by one of the biggest fantasy novelists out there. I don't even know the guy, but he's like, this is one of the most popular books out there. Once I'm done this series, I think it's called Wheel of Time or something like that. And
I know it. Yeah, okay.
It's in that series, anyways.
I haven't read it, but I know the series.
Okay, so it's like cream of the crop, and he gets into my book, and he's like, "I gotta tell you, dude, I just came from like the leading edge of fantasy writers right now, and this is right on par. Like it feels like it's not out of place." I'm like, "That's maybe the best compliment I could have possibly got, because I'm not the most giant intaker of fantasy novels right now."
Oh, here's my last gush on Drew Weatherhead, folks. But we have a ton of time for you on this side, because you came through what we all lived, and you come from an area where, me and you had this discussion once upon a time, right? Do you stay or do you go? Where do you fall in that logic, that thought process, everything else? And when you come back, when you were doing your show every single day and just hammering, we talked about that too, right? It's just like, it's really cool to see the growth in who you are and where things are. And so I have a ton of, think about it. It's your third book. You go read Jordan Peterson's first book, Maps of Meaning.
That's a hard read,
book, man.
Oh
I read it. The book club read it. That was a hard book.
It's like a 60-hour audiobook.
It is. It's difficult. And at times I'm like, I don't even know if I got it. I don't know what my brain took out of it. And then all of a sudden his next book, 12 Rules for Life, oh my God, I couldn't put it down. And I look at this book. It's your third one. This isn't your sure, it's your first foray into fiction, but it's your third one. And I look at Ayn Rand. These names are I think are giants, like Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. And I that's a long freaking book. And yet it just kept going and going, and it kept reminding me of where we're at in society. I'm just like, this is so painful. And it gave me the thought of, why is it that people writing about the atrocities they'd come through go to fiction? And it's like, well, Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, transcends time and it transcends cultures. Because albeit it's talking about, at that point in Atlas Shrugged, American culture, you could, the themes going on there, we're living in Atlas Shrugged right now in Canada, just in a different version of it, and obviously a different time. And then, if you read that, then people of Ayn Rand will go, well, did you read Fountainhead? I'm like, yes, okay, I finally went and read Fountainhead, and that's another version of it. And so you wonder, is Fractures going to be your Atlas Shrugged, or is it going to be book 18 that becomes, your Atlas Shrugged, and whether or not it sells millions upon millions, I don't know. I hope that for you. I think that'd be uber cool. But, I look forward to, I'm honored that you would bring me, spelling mistakes and everything.
Yeah,
I think that's
it's got
super
all the
cool.
typos. It's got some of my original words that the editor thought were a little too flowery. I'm proud of it. I've read it. Obviously, I've read it through so many times. Every individual chapter I've probably read through 6 or 7 times, plus back and forth to try to, fix continuity errors and stuff like that. But I'm going to be reading the audiobook for it over the next couple of months too, which is going to
super
be
cool.
I'm going
So
to
you'll be able to get it on Audible.
Yeah, eventually. I just didn't have the time to do it to release it with the book. I wanted to get that out there by the end of April, which will be April 30th. I'll have a pre-order link for you. That's, by the way, if you do like to take it in digitally on your Kindle or on your phone or
you're
whatever.
opposite of me.
Yeah, if you're the opposite of Shaun, that'll be your first way that you can pre-order it, and it's only 99 cents for the first week. So you get it in your
99 cents?
Yeah.
Sweet.
That really helps get the story out for one. It helps push me up in the algorithm for two, because Amazon's basically another social media site for authors, so you need to get views and reviews and stuff.
Well, we'll push what we can on this
yeah,
side.
I appreciate that. But I don't know if this is gonna be my only fictional series, but I do know that I was inspired by anime through Attack on Titan to do this, and one of my pie in the sky dreams is to make this into a manga series. So like a what do they call those? Not a comic book.
Graphic novel?
Graphic novel, yeah. So basically a graphic novel, because some of the scenes in here I've pictured how I would have it drawn out too, because there's some pretty cool action scenes in there. And then eventually into an anime where it gets animated. So I hope that I can actually take it into the next dimension of reality outside of the book, to the pictures, to the animated pictures, and maybe the end game would have a Netflix series or something like that. So that would be if I was going to put it out there into the universe. Anybody out there with any connections, or you're a good artist that wants to get an author to run their ideas through a manga panel, hit me up, because that's sort of the trajectory I'd like to take this series.
Well, it's super cool. I know I've said that 15 times, but one of the reasons I wanted to take you out to the studio, I don't do that for every guest, because I'm there's no point until it's done, right?
I was so excited to go see that.
But this is, to me, I assume it's the studio for me is the book for you, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see what it is before it is, because hopefully in time you're going to get to experience exactly what it becomes. But it's part of the stepping stones of getting there. And to me, getting to this book, I think the audience is got to feel pretty cool too, because there's a ton of them that listen to you, and a ton of them listen to every single conversation we've had, and they're seeing the developments as they go. And it's like an overnight success, and it takes 10 years roughly.
Yeah.
It's you think about that.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. And one day, could Drew be going on, I don't know, whatever show you want, whatever panel you want, book tour you want, it's possible. And in that scenario, the audience will be like, just take us along for the ride. That'd be freaking cool. It's just cool that you've, who knows where the path leads for myself and book. As I've told you, I've never been a great writer, but building a studio, I'd never built anything out of my brain, right? Where I'm I've renovated a house, but never from scratch. And if I could go back to that year, take a time machine, I would do it so different. I would actually do it how it's led into my thought process on building the new studio. And building something, there's just something special about it. On the next Blue Collar Roundtable, which if anyone's waiting, we're waiting until we get in the new studio to do that.
Oh,
one of the things we're going to talk about is building something from scratch, because there's just something special about it. And I assume when you finally get all the words together and then you get it put in this form right here, that's got to be, because, to me, I see your name on it and I'm like, this is super cool, because, it's Fred. He's got something like this. But for you, it's got to be I assume what I'm trying to spit out, and I'm probably confusing everybody, is the same way I look at the studio as the way you look at the book.
Yeah. I was in the trades for 15 years as a welder, so I finished a lot of projects that I started, and there's no better feeling than finishing a project. It feels so good to stand back and look at it's so much better than the thought that was in your head. It's so much different than the blueprint that was in front of you. When you can look back and you can see it and you can touch it and you can use it, it's a whole different thing. And when I finished the last bit of that book, if there was any chapter I reread the most, it was the final chapter, which is by far the longest chapter. It's going to be like a 45-page chapter. I reread that over and over and over because it's so powerfully ended and such a like an assault on your sensibilities. My editor was like, I cannot believe how you ended this. I'm like, yep, I always knew it was going to end that way. This is a dystopian for a reason. It's going to take you sideways. And don't be thrown off by that either, because this is only the first book in 4. She's like, I have no idea how you're going to do a sequel to this. I'm like, I already do. I already am starting to write it. I know exactly how it's going to happen. And again, I'm excited to see your take on it, see how you think, because I was very, very excited. And it's almost like a catharsis of its own ilk. You can't really explain it until you experience how it feels like there's a relief to it being done and presentable. And it's like, I'm all for compliments and pats on the back, but I don't need one of them. You know, it's so it satisfies in a way that you're feeling with I'm sure you'll walk into the studio on the very first time you have your very first guest in this new place, and all the lights are on and the smell of the fresh wood, and you sit down at the table that you paid for and helped to construct with your ideas in reality, and you press record on the first. There'll be no other feeling like that in your life. And that's kind of
only happens once.
It's right. And that's very similar to how it felt completing that one.
Yeah, it only happens once. It's you know, we're in uncharted territory, and I'm going to tell you why. Because normally, what we do, this is the first time since we've started doing this, where I'm looking over, I'm like, we're at 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
And
are we really?
Yes, we are.
Wow.
And normally what we would do is we'd do about an hour and 15, we'd take a 10-minute break, and then we flip around and go the other way. And the reason we do that is so that you had something to release and I had something to release, and it was kind of like, hey, when you're done with this, go listen to the other side.
Yeah,
when you're done with this,
cross-pollination.
yeah, that's right. And so it's funny, I'm like, well, I don't want it to end now because I've been enjoying this conversation. And one of the things I was curious your thoughts on,
Okay.
and you haven't seen the video, but me and Ken were talking about this idea of the pain or the struggle of being awake. I don't know how. Jung has a way better, more romanticized way of saying it that way.
Mm-hmm.
In your travels, have you had pain with that? Or is it been an enjoyable ride? Or has there been different stages to it? And where are you at right now?
Definitely there's different stages, but none of them are comfortable. I mean, you're guaranteed to be ostracized the more or the less homogenous you are with the mean. That means whatever is acceptable in society, the less you are in alignment with that, the more you become unacceptable by default. You become the heterodox, to use a scientific term. You're not the orthodox, that's the accepted views. If you have a heterodoxical view, like, I don't know, COVID vaccines weren't the greatest thing that we ever did to ourselves, be expected to be on the fringe of society. You know, that what they call us, the fringe minority, right? But if it weren't for podcasts like yours and the one that I did, I mean, I get this all the time, I'm sure you do too. If it weren't for that, the atomization of somebody who has stepped outside of the norm is so painful, because we are a social person. We're a social creature. We need to have that interaction. And I mean, this will probably sound crueler than I mean it to the people that I know and I love in my life, but I don't have a lot of friends. And I feel like I've had less friends since I've been speaking out.
Can I read a quote to you? This is what stood out for me from the video that Ken sent me. And if people want it, just text me. It's 23 minutes. It's pretty, at times, deep. And one of the things that I wrote down was, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but being unable to communicate the things that seem important. That was Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that quote. There's another one from Dostoevsky. He had a similar thing that said the more intelligent person is the most lonely. So basically, the more you know, the more lonely you're going to be, because you can't find parity with the people around you. Now, whether that's because you have an IQ of 180 or whether you just have experiences that they have no analog too, and so you can't talk about it. We were talking earlier about being in a room and not being able to have anything but a shallow conversation, because you have to hit that mean of what is acceptable in this particular area. And are you going to be that guy that's going to be the, you know, shit disturber at your company's Christmas party or whatever, or are you just going to be like, hey, how's the wife, how's the kids, how's the weather, cool, bye? If that's what it's going to be, well, that gets really lonely, because you've got burning issues that are dying to get out. I mean, that's what caused me to do the social disorder to begin with. Like, it was the absolute center of the hurricane of craziness of my entire life, and I was supposed to pretend like
Everything's okay.
everything's okay. Don't talk about the thing everybody knows is going on. Meanwhile, you've lost your business, you've lost your home, you're in a foreign country, your sister's been paralyzed. None of that exists. None of that matters. Just don't talk about it. Carry on. How's the weather? And you can only do that for so long until you have to basically out yourself as heterodox. And at that point, you're going to come into contact with people that you may not have otherwise, which will have all of their own benefits. But in the meantime, that's not 24 hours at any given day. And most times it's going to be you with your thoughts, and going to be the few people that you might be able to bounce them off. Like Ken is a good example for a friend for you for that reason. But most of the time, it's going to be very lonely, and you're going to have to rationalize what is the value of that? What is the pro and con? And is it worth, like, this is the problem with, I love this character in The Matrix. One of my favorite characters, not because I like them, but because of the value of him socially, is Cypher. In the first Matrix, he just wanted to be put back in. He'd seen enough. He can't do it anymore. I know this steak in front of me is a bunch of code, but when I put it in my mouth and taste that succulent, you know, and he takes a bite and he says, I got to tell you, ignorance is bliss. And some people just want to get plugged back into that matrix because they've seen too much. They're tired, they're sad, they're lonely. But there's no going back. That red pill is a one-way trip.
You've basically given, whether you knew it or not, a bit of a sales pitch on the Cornerstone Forum. You know, I this video really shook me at the end. I'm like, oh, that's part of what happens at the Cornerstone Forum. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to me, I wish I had this idea at the start. I just want to talk about things, because it's like, you know, you go out. One of the things about not drinking, I'm on day, I don't know, January 1, folks. So what does that put me at? I think 100 and...
Let's go. Triple digits.
8.
Good for you.
I don't know where I'm at. It doesn't matter. Just that, you know, like when you get into a conversation you really enjoy, what we're doing right now. Do I need alcohol for it? I certainly do not, because you're wrestling with another person's brain and you're talking about things that, you know, I'm on a philosophical level and a bunch of other different levels I really enjoy. It's like, but then you get into some conversations where you're like, 10 minutes in, you're like, I gotta just go home, you know? And with alcohol, it changes that paradigm.
How so?
Well, because all you need is a drink between the two of you. And all of a sudden you're sharing something and it just makes everything a little bit funnier, or you can just talk about the most absurd things and away you go. It just gives you that ability with a lot of different people. It doesn't mean you can do it with everyone, but it does allow that. And when you pull that out of the equation, I can still do that with people, not having the beverage in between. Now you can put a can of pop or a bottle of water in between, and for some reason it still works. But like, these conversations are few and far between. I have more of them than most because of what I do for a living. But in your everyday life, you know, it's funny. You just don't find many people that want to sit down and have a real deep conversation. And now you also have to have the 2+ hours in order to do it, because you're going to get into some things, and you know, you got to wrestle. And yet at the Cornerstone Forum, all I wanted to do is I just wanted to bring some people together, because I'm like, frick, we got to talk about, you know, at one point Russia, Ukraine, or you know, the media, or, you know, all the different ideas I rattled off, and then we put it all into a day. And one of the things that I still can't quantify, I try to explain it, but I do a poor job, is what I see from the stage in the crowd. Because you think, right now, there is 470, well, I actually don't know, between 470 and 500 people coming to the Cornerstone Forum. The goal is 600 people. I'm going to keep seeding it out there. If you haven't bought your tickets, go hard, buy them here, okay? There's only a few days left that you can get meals with it. So, by the time this airs, I think it's going to be less than a week. So less than 7 days. So I don't know what you're waiting for, but go buy a ticket. So I look out at the crowd, and you see out of these, last year it was 250 people, and about 100 of them had come in couples or by themselves. So, pretty isolated, lonely, like, am I going to know anyone? That awkwardness. Everybody's like laughing and having a good time. And the giddiness, like they were all, nobody's drinking. Like I don't have, at start of supper, the bars open up. But the full day, that doesn't happen. I don't like, why would you have alcohol while you're listening? No, that doesn't make any sense to me. So all day long, nobody's drinking. And yet everybody's kind of like a little bit giddy, almost like they're high. It's interesting to watch from where I sit. And the more I think about it, it's kind of what you just rattled off, except all these people all coalesce into a group together, get to listen to conversation they want to have by people that they maybe they don't know them all, but they're gonna discuss some things going on. They're not gonna stray away from any topic. Naysayers may say there's a couple they won't touch. Maybe, I don't know, but I bet you if you ask them about it, they'll probably bring it up. Okay, well, we'll talk about this. But what's really cool is what happens between all these people. Some of them know each other. Some of them have been to all my events and are starting to know each other because of that. Oh, cool. Right? You and Ken have met at an event, right?
Yeah.
But others are coming. I got a couple flying in from Toronto. I sat on the phone with them for 20 minutes. They were really nervous. And then they heard how many people are coming. They're like, that'll be, okay. Right? Because they expect they're going to be the odd people. But all the odd people are getting together.
It's true.
And you look across the table and you start talking. Oh, man, guy's got something to say. Oh, and all of a sudden you see this conversation, just nobody on phones. And it just starts to bubble, and off it goes. And it's like this universe that you want to exist. But in all of our communities, it doesn't exist. It's almost impossible to replicate because people are busy. Just don't go nefarious. Just kids and work and how hard you push yourself to put food on the table and on and on. And at this event, it's going to be possible. And it is possible. And you see it play out right in front of you.
That's got to be a cool feeling looking from the stage. I hadn't thought of that perspective, but that's how you've seen all of them, right? Obviously, you're the organizer, so you got to deal with like the nitty gritty and making sure that everybody shows up and everything's running on. You've got your clock up on stage to make sure that they only
on
speak
time.
for so long.
Oh, believe me, they'll be on time. I've pushed myself to the limit on this one.
Yeah, somebody's got to buy you one of those big long shepherd's hooks to pull them off stage with. But besides that, getting up there because you're the MC too. You're sort of keeping
I'm working
things
on
together.
that this year.
Yeah? Are you? Okay.
Well,
you've got your fancy jacket with your S&P on the inside. Like
that is going to be there.
Yes, it's looking good. You're sharp up there.
Yeah.
But then, looking out over however many it's going to be, dozens and dozens of tables and chairs and people sitting there, hundreds of people showing up in person, and all every single one of them unequivocally is not only a listener but probably an avid listener to come and get a ticket. So this is like a sampling of your prime audience that's there that you can shake hands with, that you can interact with, and you can walk out there as like, we made it, guys. Like, here you are. Look at us. We all got together. Unbelievable. We actually pulled this off. That's got to be something of a feeling.
Well, which adds into one of my favorite things that I just had come to me. One of my first shows I ever did is to get everybody to stand up. And then we do how far did you travel? And this one, I was shocked. Last year we had New Jersey, Vermont, Phoenix, somebody driven 28 hours from Ontario, and then Vancouver, Winnipeg, all the, and that's not even to mention like Mikkel Thorpe coming from Panama and Alex Craner coming from over in Europe. And this year, we're going to be shocked at how far people have come. And part of that's the speakers. That has nothing to do with me. Part of that is certainly to do with me. And that always is moving. Like, it's just like...
And you're sitting here saying you don't build anything. Give me a break. That takes some serious effort.
Well,
that's
that.
Maybe it's not a shed. Maybe it's not a building. But try to grab somebody off the street and say, you've got to do this next year. That's not going to be possible. That's the tip of the iceberg. They're not seeing all the work to get to. You're over 800, coming up on 900 episodes. to get to what you can culminate into a live experience like that, that is some serious construction. Now, whether or not that was the end goal, or even like
a book wasn't the end goal.
Exactly.
Right? I had no idea.
But again, I couldn't have taught somebody how to do that because it happened to me, along the way.
And it's funny. I sit here and I don't know if I'm going to do it again in 2026.
Really?
It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of. It's if you asked myself,
your ticket sales are going to skyrocket after hearing that.
Well,
this might be the last one.
If you asked me before 2024's Cornerstone Forum, I probably would have said a similar thing.
Okay.
And then but in fairness, after my event in June of 2023, I did take 8 months, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And out of that came the Cornerstone Forum. I sat and stewed on my thoughts. Because I don't know about you, I can get running so fast that I don't just stop. Go be by myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm reading about Jesus and how much time he goes and spends
meditating,
prayer alone. Like what are we actually trying to do here? What are we chasing? Because at times you can just get caught up in the running around, and then you're like, what am I doing? So, like, I don't mean that as a push on people to buy tickets. I actually mean it. I'm like, like, if I ever thought I'd be in Calgary doing one of these shows, which I told myself I would never leave Lloyd. I did one in Edmonton. I said never again, and here I am again. So I will never say never. But I don't know what 2026 holds. I think it's a lie to tell you all that I'm going to do this for the next 10 years. I actually don't know. I don't know, like I watch the world and I see how many conferences there are. I'm like, should I do this? Like, do I want to just have another conference? Like,
that's the wrong question. You never want to compare yourself to the market out there. Like, I hear this all the time from young entrepreneurs. Like, I need an idea that nobody's ever had before. Bullshit. No, you don't. You need to take an idea that you feel strongly about and go forth and do it. Make your own thing, because being first to market isn't the only way to start something. Show me a market and I'll show you 10,000 people in it. And I bet you at least half of them are making a living. You just got to actually have the drive to do it. So, like, don't look at, there's so many conferences. Who would want to come to mind? Or about anything that you're doing. There's so many authors. Why would I want to make a book? That shouldn't be why you're making a book, because you want to be the best author. The best author is just the best at it. They probably didn't start with that in mind. I guarantee you they didn't start with that in mind. In fact, they're probably just as surprised as anyone. They're as far as they are. They just decided to write a story one day and became Harry Potter. You know what I mean?
Harry Potter was very good.
It was very good.
It was very good. Yeah. That was a brilliant ending on it, too. You make your valid points. Valid points. When it comes to the podcast, rain or shine, I love this. This I love. Like, and I've had my success at it. And does the success follow for the next 20 years? I have no idea. But I'm going to keep doing it because I love this.
That's the reason to keep doing it.
And when it comes to the forum, I love certain parts of it. Like, certain parts of it are super cool to watch and witness, and everything I just talked about with being on stage and seeing it. I never thought I played hockey all my life. Still play hockey. And there's this feeling before a big game. Like, I try and explain it to my kids because I can see them get nervous before they're in piano right now. So very different experience.
Recital?
Yes. Yeah. For adjudication, where they're going to get,
What a big word for a little kid.
Oh. And to watch them go through it, I'm just like, that feeling. You're going to hunt. You don't realize it yet. You're going to hunt for that feeling.
The adrenaline, the unsureness.
Yeah. But the high,
tournaments for me.
The high of when you get it right, it's just, there's nothing can stop you. And when you get the low of a low, it's like, well, you got to pick yourself out of that, and you gotta find your way back. And one of the things that for sure I'll try and take a breath at this coming forum, and just like take a step back and look at what you've done by just putting your mind. And I got to give a shout out to Silver Gold Bull and Bow Valley Credit Union. These two companies saw what I've done and brought it to Calgary. That's why it's there. They pushed hard for me to have it in Calgary. So to Calgary we go. And at some point I'm going to, because this year is at a hockey arena.
Oh, no way. Is it actually?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm working on my speech. I haven't got it finalized yet. But my idea for when I come out on the stage, and I hate to spoil this, is, I've searched for my next arena. I loved the rink. I loved that feeling of going out fresh ice. You step out, the crowd's there, and the first big hit, or you get hit, the crowd goes nuts, they're booing you, all the things. Love it, and I miss it. Never thought I'd find it again. And then I stepped on stage in 2022 at the first ever SMP Presents with Danielle Smith and Andre Murray and Shane Getson and Dr. Eric Payne, and I'm like, oh my God, I found it. I didn't think I'd ever. Makes my hair stand up. I never thought I'd find that again. And here I am in 2025, and I get to have that feeling again on the ice, albeit a little different, but it's in a beautiful arena. Oh, it's absolute gorgeous facility. It's where the Olympic athletes train, where the Calgary Flames train. Yeah, It's got that big the ski jump.
Okay.
It's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there. The hotel overlooks the mountains. I'm like, if I just take a step back and I made $0 from this, zero, I'd be like, got to come to Calgary, overlook the mountains. My wife's coming with me. She's gonna be there, and you're gonna get all these speakers together. Martin Armstrong. I never ever thought I'd be able to bring him to Canada.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And who knows? Maybe it'll be dull and it'll suck. I have no idea. That's my as people call that, your inner bitch talking right now.
Yeah, don't listen to that.
But I go like, I got Martin Armstrong to come to Canada, and I'm like, all these people, and I'm pushing myself, folks. When I hear Drew talk about all these books, so you were at the last one,
Yeah.
and I pushed speakers to be done in 13 and a half minutes, and I kept everything so tight. This time around, instead of having 6 speakers, we have 13, and we have 2 guest hosts. Twos is going to introduce a few of the people.
Alrighty.
Like, this is going to be either you're going to come out of it and be like, what the heck was that? That was amazing. Or you're going to be like, you got to dial it back on how hard you go. Because I'm pushing the tempo on this. I'm going to push the limits of what can be done in a one-day conference. I'm taking all the lessons I learned from last year and putting it into this one. Plus, it's going to be in one of the, who knows? We'll see if the facility fits the idea. It's one thing I can't, sound quality and different things, but it's on the floor of a rink.
Listen to you talk about this. You are absolutely going to do one in 2026. Give me a break.
We'll see.
Can I give you some unsolicited advice? That's not actually a question. I'm going to give it to you
Sure.
either way.
Give me some unsolicited advice.
All right, here. Solicited or not. You say that there's some things that you love and some things that you don't love about doing this. Actually put them down on paper. Put them down on paper, what you love about it, and the things that's like, oh man, I would not want to do this event at all because of these things. And then focus on the ones that you love and try to find out if there's a way that you can outsource the ones that you
delegate
hate.
the other
delegate
ones.
it. Get it off of your plate, because if that's the only reason that is going to prevent people from a 2026 forum, just don't do those. If it has to be like you were talking about, maybe like dialing back on some of the costs on some of these things, you maybe overstretched yourself and now you're stressed about certain things, getting into the black because you overextended because of the guests coming from different, whatever it is. You write down the things and be like, okay, if I were to cut that back by half and half and half and half, and now I'm going to amplify and double the things that I like here and here and here, you'll be hitting that high like you haven't hit before, and forget it, doing 1 a year, you might do 3 a year. Like this could become something real if you follow, instead of your inner bitch, you follow the mind of the ant, which is something I put into my first book, is what is the thing that you would most want to do, the thing that motivates you to get up out of the colony and go forth into the wild world and go explore, and that feeling that you get from the value of the things you most want to do. Focus on that, like use that as your divining rod towards, because if you aren't actually motivated to go do the thing that you want to do, it becomes something you have to do. And if you're trying to get yourself out of bed for something you have to do, that has a time clock on it. And if you have a choice and you're a sovereign individual, you'd be like, I'm no longer going to do the thing I have to do. I'm going to do the thing I want to do. So just make the thing that you have to do the thing you want to do. This sounds like old timers advice, make your job something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. It's basically what I'm saying. But like literally make a list, take that advice if you will, and figure out like, these are the things I can excise or minimize or offshore or outsource so that it's not on my plate. I can take a instead of a on the way to this thing that I love to do, that everybody loves and is coming from around the country and around the world for.
That's really good advice.
There you go. I'll send a bill in the mail. Actually, what I'll do is I'll take a booth from you. I'll
done.
take a booth.
Well, Drew Weatherhead is going to be at the forum. Hope we'll see you there too. Drew, any final things? I mean, we've been rolling for a while, and
Yeah.
I got no problem carrying on.
No, I'm having fun. This is a great conversation. I was looking forward to it for months. I
Well,
told you from Texas or Florida or one of those
My only
ones.
disappointment is that it wasn't in the new studio because I was really looking forward to. But in saying that, we got
Something
to
to
take
look forward to for the next one there.
Yeah, we got to take a travel out there and go see some things. And
Yeah, a lot happens in a few months, so I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about the next time around. We'll do it from a comfy studio, and if people want to check out that pre-order, I'll make sure Shaun has the link down in the show notes, and that will give you, again, it's a 99-cent entry to a digital copy, and even if you don't read the digital and you just want to throw 99 cents at me, it really helps me on the Amazon side to get towards that bestseller thing where,
and it's 99 cents.
Yeah, it's something you'll
99
never
cents.
miss. And if I get like 100 people, that'll probably push me pretty far up into the opening day release for April 30th. And if you're waiting for the physical copy like Shaun has right here, April 30th will be the first day you can buy it in hard copy, the hardback, as well as...
You can have the hardbacks at Cornerstone Forum?
I don't know. Do you think people like those more than the paperbacks?
I would buy a hard copy from
Would
you.
you? Okay.
What are you going to be
try it.
selling? What are they worth? I don't know what a book's worth. Is it 25? Is it 35?
20 bucks.
20 bucks?
Yeah.
20 bucks?
20 bucks.
20 bucks
I
gets me a
wanna
hard
make
copy?
I want to make it easy so that people don't need change. Just bring me a greenback and I'll trade you for a
20
book.
bucks for a hard copy. You bring hard copy. You bring one at least, and I'll buy it from
Okay.
you because I would love. I prefer hard over soft.
Look at that. You're giving me my first sale too.
Yeah, done. I would gladly do that.
Sweet. All right. So anyways, for the listeners, if you want to check out the digital and just help me with the algorithm for Amazon, that really helps. And otherwise, man, this was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next one, Shaun.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming up and
Thanks for
doing this.
the silver, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hey, everybody who comes in the studio, you get a 1 ounce silver coin from SGB. So.
Right on.